Fan, Upstate.
Totally, says Dewey on the stream. He is already watching over on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. You can do the same, Tolos. Jump in to the conversation. Cole, I haven't revealed this to you yet. I did put a note on the rundown, and I don't know if you saw it or not. But tomorrow is going to be a very special day.
Oh, yeah.
Set your alarms in your phones. Set your reminders on your calendar because at high noon, it feels like high noon, 5 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to have a showdown between the Leprechaun of Lyman and Madcraft. So that these two, Leprechaun obviously being a Notre Dame fan, Madcraft being a Miami fan, these two can butt heads over who deserves the table scraps in the college football playoff. It's going to be a blast. I've already gotten commitments from both to be here. All we got to do is make sure they answer their phones.
I just don't know if that's going to be great radio, horrible radio, somewhere in between radio. Who knows radio?
Some Tolo on Tolo violence.
Oh, my.
I love it.
And it's to be clear, it's not the Leprechaun as his agent. Is that right?
Hopefully we can get the Leprechaun.
I thought yesterday on the text line
he did say that.
It'll be interesting to see if the Leprechaun will do it.
Dewey says he wants his showdown with Madcraft. It's going to be fun if that one ever comes to fruition.
I don't think Mad wants that smoke.
Could you imagine Dewey and Leprechaun tag teaming against Madcraft?
Oh, boy.
That'd be a fun show. Welcome into Wire to Wire. Big show for you today. Coming up in the very next segment, Jordan Kaye of the State Newspaper. What kind of sense can he make of South Carolina's recruiting day number one? Don't forget, it's not over. They got until Friday to get their national letters of intent for the early signing period in. There's still a late signing period, or they call this one early signing period and the other one signing day. But this is just signing day, and the other one is late signing day. Also coming up at 4:20, we'll have Pete Yanity from WSPA joining us on the show. People around here know and love Pete. He's been an upstate institution for a long, long time. But Cole, I think if the ACC gets shut out of the college football playoff, that Jim Phillips should be fired. Get his ass out of here. Dewey's all about firing people, and it is firing season. But can you convince me in any way, shape, or form that Jim Phillips has done a great job as commissioner of the ACC?
No, I don't think Jim Phillips has done a great job. I think he's done a good enough job to get by. And, there's been a lot of criticism of Jim Phillips over the years.
Good enough to get by.
Yeah, good enough to get by. That's where the ACC is. It's the ACC. It's good enough to get by. That is what the ACC always has been, Diesel. You got to think about it. Is it Jim Phillips' fault that Duke has lost 5 games this year? I mean, no. Jim Phillips is not a good commissioner, right? We all know that. But is it Jim Phillips' fault that Miami can't take care of business and win the regular season games they're supposed to? No, it's not his fault. But again, if you want to talk about things that Jim Phillips has done wrong, there's certainly things to bring up.
So I'm not saying that Duke missing the playoff is Jim Phillips' fault. I'm saying the conditions that Jim Phillips created allowed this situation to happen, to be possible, okay? And it's not just this. This is the straw that broke the camel's back for me. If I'm an ACC fan, or if I'm a high up at the ACC and I'm looking at who might we want to replace Jim Phillips with, or the job that we think he's done an absolutely horrible job as the commissioner of the ACC. A little history lesson for when Jim Phillips came in. He was hired in February of 2021. Prior to that, he was the athletic director at Northwestern. He was praised for his vision, his leadership, and foundational dedication to the success of the student athlete. 6 months onto the job, he got fleeced by the Big Ten. 6 months. Remember that alliance that was supposed to happen? And all of it was to try to be a bulwark against the SEC and its expansion into other areas of the country. The Big Ten and the ACC, they got together. They said, hey, let's be friends. Let's form a wall. And then what did the Big Ten do? His first opportunity they got, which, by the way, was 6 months later. They said, screw you, Jim Phillips. We don't need you. We're going to completely gut the Pac-12.
Yeah, I think that for me, again, I think every fan might feel different depending on what school you're a fan of, whether it's Clemson, Florida State, or another ACC school. But for me, Diesel, I think the major blemishes that I can find on Jim Phillips are, number one, the entire saga with Clemson and Florida State that we were talking about.
Yeah. We'll get to that.
A year and a half ago, right?
Yep.
I think that's number one. It was very messy. Luckily for him, it kind of ended okay, kind of. For now. And then I think the second thing is when you look at the ACC as a whole, I don't understand how any fan of any team in the ACC loves the fact that Cal is in your conference, loves the fact that Stanford is in your conference. When you talk about a conference growing, that's one thing, but the SEC grew, but the SEC also added teams in its region, not teams out of Washington. If the SEC were to have added Washington State, that'd have been a little bit different. What Jim Phillips did in the ACC is not expand the conference. He distracted, I think a lot of fans, a lot of college football fans by adding 2 teams out of California that should not be in the ACC.
Let's be real, they shouldn't have allowed SMU in either, but SMU was willing to pay their way in. They didn't have to throw any money at SMU, but they ballooned all the way out to the West Coast, threw some life rafts at these 2 schools. Cole, it's really simple. They could have done exactly what the Sun Belt had already done, which was offer them membership on a temporary basis. Hey, we'll let you in for 5 years, and after 5 years, we'll reevaluate, see if it's working out for you, see if it's working out for us. I mean, Cal and Stanford, they should have waited. It would have been beneficial for them too, because now with this newly reconstituted Pac whatever conference, with those 2 schools added in, they might still be considered a power conference. You would still have 4 of your legacy members, Cal, Stanford, Washington State, and Oregon State, and then you would add Boise State and all the others that are brought in to fill this thing out. They might still be considered a power conference or closer to it than what the Pac whatever is eventually going to be. So if Jim Phillips had enough vision to put him in there on a temporary basis, on an interim basis, they'd have been in good shape. But no, let's just add them on in, have them go all the way to the end of the grant of rights of 2036.
Now, I will say, to defend Jim Phillips, I think being the commissioner of the ACC is a tough job. I really do. It is not the same as the SEC. Has Jim Phillips done a bad job in my mind? Like I said, I don't think he's done a good job at all. I think he's floated the ship, if you will, right? I just don't know that when you look at the ACC as a viable conference, I don't know who. I mean, if Nick Saban came in, if you name the guy. I don't know who could make the ACC better. There's a lot of issues in the ACC.
Well, I don't know that a celebrity figurehead is the right person to bring in to run a conference. I mean, bring in Nick Saban. Sure. What does Nick Saban know about the ACC? He's never coached in the ACC. Could he potentially do a good job? Potentially. But also to be a commissioner of a conference, you have to have sort of a CEO businessman mentality. And we don't know that that's Nick Saban's skill set. But under Jim Phillips, they also have failed to bring Notre Dame fully into the conference. They're allowing Notre Dame to suckle at the ACC teat whenever it suits them. But whenever the ACC needs Notre Dame to step up, they're like, sorry, Jimmy, we're not here to help you out with that. We're just here to fill out our basketball schedule.
Yeah, and again, I in no way, shape, or form think Nick Saban should be the commissioner. I was just saying a Nick Saban type of guy. But by the way,
I get what you
Nick Saban does own a lot of businesses.
Sure.
Maybe he is a business guy. Good to see DB, JB, Dewey. Let's see, Zach Breeze, Dan B in the stream, where 50 Tolos are already watching the show live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You said for now, I think that's the biggest thing for Jim Phillips right now is making sure that what happened a summer ago or a year ago with Florida State and Clemson, I think that's the biggest Band-Aid he has to worry about right now.
Well, right now he needs to be worrying about pounding that drum for Miami, and he's not doing it. Maybe he's doing it behind the scenes, and I've heard reports that Jim Phillips is behind the scenes lobbying to the College Football Playoff Commission. But guess what? Jim Phillips doing it behind the scenes versus Steve Sarkisian doing it out in the limelight. Who is going to get more attention for this? Who is going to maybe make some more inroads? You got Clark Lee beating the drum for Vandy. You got Cristobal beating the drum for Miami publicly. You got Steve Sarkisian beating the drum for Texas. Where's Jim Phillips? Where is Jim Phillips saying that it would be a travesty to leave a 10-win Miami team out of this playoff? It is his job to advocate for his universities.
Oh, it is.
Publicly. Where are you, Jim?
And I think that's what happens. I mean, let's say, for example, we fast forward and there's no ACC school in the playoff. Let's say that happens because that's a scenario. That's the road we're going down right now with this conversation. If that were to happen, if Duke were to win and beat Virginia this weekend, right, all of a sudden this conference is left without a team in the playoff. You said it. It would then be Jim Phillips' role, responsibility to step up almost in a way that Vandy did. Did you see the report that came out today?
Yeah, I did see that.
This is what Jim Phillips needs to be doing. All kidding aside, if you didn't see this, Tolos, Vanderbilt, no lie, tossed around the idea of playing another game just to try to prove to the committee that they were a viable playoff team. So my point being, if Duke wins and then the 5-loss Duke Blue Devils don't get in, Jim Phillips should be doing whatever it takes. Again, I don't think he will be. He'll release a statement. He'll put out a beautiful, bold blue and white statement with really nice letterhead, and it'll look good. It will. All the letterhead we saw. All the letterhead at the ACC kickoff was fantastic. They have really great letterhead at the ACC. They do, and the food's pretty good. I mean, they're nice people, but that's about it.
I was shocked, and I'm glad Clark Lee brought that up because I don't know if I asked our guest this question yesterday, Bill Bender, but I know I thought about it. Wouldn't it be a better idea instead of a conference championship game to have number 3 and number 4 play in an exhibition, in a showcase, whatever you want to call it, and say, here's our extra data point? Because if you're already in the college football playoff, just by virtue of being in your conference championship game, then what's the point? If you can't be jumped by being in your conference championship game, what is the point? It's the teams that are sitting on the outside looking in that need that extra data point more than the teams that are basically already locked in. And in, trying to find out more about what Jim Phillips has actually done as commissioner of the ACC. I didn't know this, Cole. I need to give him some credit because I didn't know that Jim Phillips, under his leadership, was able to up the per school payout in the ACC to $45 million each. Now, that's what it's going to be before the uneven revenue distribution comes for Clemson and Florida State. But think about that. That's good for Clemson and Florida State and whoever else may receive that extra money. That's horrible for everybody else, for the Boston Colleges of the world, for the Syracuses of the world. How are those schools ever going to be able to compete against the Clemsons and the Florida States who are getting more money than them from their own conference? So Jim Phillips, he did what he had to do to stabilize the ACC and keep Clemson and Florida State in there for now. But he's also basically guaranteed that when this $75 million exit fee goes into practice in 2030, Clemson and FSU, they're going to pay it. Clemson, FSU, Miami, UNC, Duke, whoever it may be, they're going to pay it. They're going to leave.
Another angle that ties into what we were talking about yesterday, if this were to happen, Diesel, let's say, for example, we're down this road now. We've already hit 3 or 4 potholes. Let's say, for example, this happens. Duke wins, and then all of a sudden we go back to the conversation we were having with Matt Kraft, maybe not yesterday, maybe it was Tuesday, about the committee setting a standard and sticking by that standard every single year, right? Having a standard in place and never wavering from that standard. So let's say, for example, another way of looking at this, another angle to venture down. If Duke were to win, ACC doesn't have a school left. You talk about the loser of conference championship games, because you just said something to that effect. I don't remember exactly what you said, but when you talk about the loser of conference championship games, Diesel, think about this. Last year, the committee set the standard that Clemson got in the ACC championship. They won the ACC championship. SMU lost the ACC championship. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not looking at it right now, but wasn't SMU 12? Weren't they the last team in last year? I think off the top of my head, I know that Boise State was a little bit higher ranked because they had Ashton Jeanty. They had such a good year.
And they won their conference.
Imagine, though, if you set that precedent, Diesel, and I know this is kind of venturing down a different road, but imagine if you set that precedent and had to do the same thing with every conference loser.
Sure.
So
Clemson was 12. SMU
Clemson
was
12.
11 in the
Okay.
CFP.
In the Final One last year. So Clemson defeated SMU. Remember on the walk-off field goal?
Yep.
I just wonder, and this all ties back into the conversation, what if it were to happen? What if Duke were to win? I just wonder what the committee would do when you talk about going forward in years to come, not only with the ACC, but other conferences, because I heard Josh Pate talking about it this morning on Get Up with Greeny. You can't punish the loser of the SEC championship game, but guess what? Why, if you can't punish the loser of the SEC championship game, why are other conference championship losers being punished? Yeah. Because that happens. Well, so there's a lot that goes into it. I think it's fascinating.
I argued this yesterday that you have to be able to punish the loser of the SEC championship. Not that you have to punish them, but you have to be able to punish them. How they perform in that game has to matter because, again, if you're locking two teams in, both these two teams in the SEC championship, and forever this will be the case, both of those teams will be inside of that cut line, the top 10 cut line. If you can't say no matter how this game plays out, we will not punish the loser, even if it's a 48-0 blowout. We will not punish the loser. Then you're rendering conference championship games as nothing but a money generator for the conferences that could potentially injure players that they might need in the playoff.
Meanwhile, Virginia, if they were to lose, would be punished for losing their conference championship game.
Sure.
That's just fact. Virginia, if they lose, they're not getting in. They're not getting in. They're in no world putting Virginia in if they lose. We all agree with that, right?
Correct.
So they would majorly get punished if they lost their conference. That's what I'm saying. It's just there are so – and going back to what Matt Kraft's kind of been preaching this entire time, there are so many just little inconsistencies that you can find, and I think that's why it's
contradictory precedents. Yeah. And I don't know – Badcraft seems to know because he seems to pore over every single word like a lawyer on the CFP committee's website. I haven't done that. Good for you, Madcraft, for doing it. I don't know that any of these rules, these quote unquote rules that everybody keeps talking about, are actually codified anywhere. I think these are precedents that have been set, but precedents cannot be set in stone. Okay, you have to be able to be flexible with the precedents, or you end up in a situation where everybody's locked in 3 weeks in advance.
The best comment on the stream so far. It just made me laugh. Duke, this is so good. The comment from Figuro Tom: if Duke can make the ACC title game, then this proves you don't need a championship game. I think I think there might be some validity to that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, he says if Duke can make the ACC title game, this proves you don't need a championship game.
That's great. That's great, Tom. Texter says Bama should be out if they lose.
No,
they would
shouldn't
have 3 losses and one of them to a horrible ACC team.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Texter. At 5:20, we will talk about that. We're going to dive deep into what should punishment be for losers of conference championship games across the board. Hope you can join us for that. 5:20. Again, we've got Pete Yanity, WSPA, coming on at 4:22. Coming up next, Jordan Kaye of the State newspaper, the State segment. A lot of Gamecock news today and some big news in favor of South Carolina. We'll talk about it with Jordan Kaye next.
10 Upstate.
I lost Jordan Diesel. I'm going to try him one more time to see if I can get him on. I looked over at the phone line.
Uh-oh.
Wasn't there.
He's running away.
Let me try him.
He
You
must
think
have
he's
heard our
running away?
show.
Maybe so. Probably so. Hurt Dewey. He hurt Dewey.
Tolos, get us your upset picks if you haven't done it yet here for the championship game weekend. Those are the 9 games that you can choose from. 844-326-3663. Get us your upset picks. Earlier today, MTC Justin, he's taking BYU plus 12.5 over Texas Tech. Late in the show yesterday, we got picks from Trey from Kentucky, also taking that same game, and Rebel Vol 51 going Troy over James Madison for 23.5 points.
We got him back.
Huge. Let's go to the phone lines and bring in Jordan Kaye.
What's up, Jordan? How are you, man? Let me hit this button. How about now? You got us now?
Yes.
Hey,
off to a flaming start. I hope you're doing fantastic.
Flaming, smoking, same difference.
Whatever you want to call it, however you want to categorize it. Jordan, a big day, man, for South Carolina. We've got a lot to get to in our time together today, but man, I guess there's some Landon Duckworth news to talk about. Julian Walker. Let's start there. Julian Walker, Dutch Fork High School, flipping his commitment today from Michigan to South Carolina. Is that your biggest Gamecock news of the day?
Probably, yeah, because, I mean, it's that or Landon Duckworth. I mean, think about where South Carolina was yesterday. It seemed like at one point Landon Duckworth, the 4-star quarterback prospect from Jackson, Alabama, was maybe going to flip to LSU. I mean, that's what, the Rivals recruiting expert Steve Wilfong said. That would have been a massive, massive blow to the South Carolina recruiting class because going into the day, they had 14 commits. If Duckworth opted out, all of a sudden that's only 13. And then you're starting to look at this South Carolina quarterback room that only has 3 guys in Lenore Sellers, Aaron Nolan, and Cutter Woods. Then if Lenore went to the draft or something, you're looking at that quarterback room and thinking, oh my gosh, this is a little dire right now. And it would have really put a lot of pressure on South Carolina to go and really nail a portal quarterback on top of doing everything else. So that was going to be a tough spot, but credit to South Carolina for coming through last night and today and getting Duckworth signed, and then nail it, really getting Julian Walker on the board. He was a long-time Michigan commit. His dad is part of the strength and conditioning staff at South Carolina. It always kind of made sense that he would end up at South Carolina, but he was committed to Michigan for a long time. Seemed like he wasn't wavering, and even took a visit out there for the big game this weekend between Michigan and Ohio State, but kind of at the last minute flips to South Carolina, and that bumps up the Gamecocks recruiting class to number 20 overall. And then if you're just looking at the average ranking of their guys, pushes them into I think the top 5. So what seemed like a dire, rough situation for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks 24 hours ago, all of a sudden has in South Carolina fans feeling pretty darn good right now.
Jordan, what can you tell us about Darius Gray, 5-star offensive lineman, number 14 national player at his position? I mean, good God, could South Carolina not use a couple of more 5-star guys on the offensive line? I know they snagged a couple of more in this year's class. I mean, it's a 5-star. It's always great to get a 5-star, but we've seen Shane Beamer pull a couple of these already in the past. I mean, do you think any of the uncertainty of Shane's future might have slowed that down a little bit, or am I worrying about nothing?
No, a little. I would say a little bit. So, I mean, Darius Gray is a guy that Shane Beamer and South Carolina have been recruiting for like 4 years. Basically, they've been on Darius Gray since he was a freshman in high school. And so they always kind of had that in. Darius Gray was always bought into everything South Carolina and Shane Beamer were doing, and really even stuck firm after Lonnie Teasley, the offensive line coach, was fired in October. I mean, sometimes that's a pretty big deal. And yet Darius Gray throughout the entire process said, as long as Shane Beamer is at South Carolina, I'll be at South Carolina. And you got to give the kid a lot of credit. Like, he did not take another visit this entire time. There was no drama with his recruitment. His papers were the first to come in on Wednesday morning. Like, this is the kid you want to build a recruiting class around. And when you're looking at the lost leadership of last year, Darius Gray is kind of one of those guys that you're hoping can come in and not only play right away, but become a leader either very early or after a year or two. And that's going to be a very big thing for South Carolina. Now, the thing is, I mean, like you mentioned, the Gamecocks have not struggled to get highly touted offensive linemen the last couple of years. I mean, there's no problem of them racking in 4- and 5-star offensive linemen. And then, a couple of years goes by and it's like they're hardly playing or not living up to their potential. So I don't blame people for seeing Darius Gray and the 5-star next to him and saying, let's wait and see a little bit. I'll believe it when I see it. And that's totally fine. We'll see who the offensive line coach is and see if they can develop Gray and some of those other former 4- and 5-star guys.
Jordan, you mentioned the offensive lineman there. Shane Beamer made it a point of emphasis talking about how this team needed to get better up front at the line of scrimmage. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly, what you need to say. Like, it's no secret that South Carolina's offensive line has been one of the worst in the SEC. They've given up 125 sacks over the past 3 seasons. Just almost seemingly just keep getting worse. I will say last year wasn't as bad. And then at defensive line, I thought they did a decent enough job kind of replacing Alex Huntley and, Tonka Hemingway and TJ Sanders, but it certainly wasn't good enough this season. And those are going to be the 2 big areas, when they hit the portal. I think the big thing is those are the big areas for almost every school. So yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, how they allocate their resources and how they kind of attack going and getting those guys. What I will say is, arguably the 3 best offensive linemen they've grabbed out of the portal under Shane Beamer have been Torricelli Simpkins from North Carolina Central, Nick Gargiulio from Yale, and Kamar Bell from FAU. So it's almost seemingly, probably a good thing if they're plucking guys that you've never heard of.
Jordan, with Markel Blackwell now being the 3rd position coach that Shane Beamer has fired, how would you expect that role to be filled? Will it be sort of on the shoulders of whoever this TBD offensive coordinator is going to be, because it's still a big part of the offense, running the running game, or will it be more Shane Beamer's decision?
I imagine it's going to be a little bit of both of that. My thought is that Shane Beamer has some names in mind. He's been a coach for a while. Heck, 2 years ago, he had to do this exact same thing and fill a running back coach role. So he at least has names. I'm sure he's been calling around about guys and seeing, who's possibly available. But I can't imagine that he would make the hire before the offensive coordinator hire, because it needs to be a collaborative thing. And perhaps the offensive coordinator has ties to some running backs coach that Shane didn't even know or think was available. So I think you have to start with the offensive coordinator, and then that could be a collaborative effort to then, figure out the rest of the offensive staff.
And what's the latest on that, Jordan, as far as the OC goes?
I haven't heard much. It's been pretty quiet. I think there were a lot of people early on that thought they might get John David Baker from East Carolina. It looks like right now he's headed to Texas A&M. I think Colin Klein's probably going to get that job at his alma mater, Kansas State. So that's one name off the board. I think other people have been throwing around Kevin Decker from Old Dominion, maybe the Cincinnati guy. Maybe I think it's Jason Beck at Utah, who actually recruited Lenora Sellers when he was at Virginia and then Syracuse, and had Sellers committed for a while. So those are a couple names, but it's pretty unclear right now of who's actually available. I've been, on FlightAware trying to track some flights, and I haven't seen anything come in. So I think they're doing interviews, but doesn't I don't know if anyone's flying in
on
right
Zoom.
Now. What?
On Zoom interviews.
That's probably what's going on, but it's got to be tough. And I kind of give Shane Beamer credit for saying hey, we're not just going to just go out there and make a hire to make a hire. And it's going to be tough right now because there's a lot of variance around the country. I mean, plenty of schools need offensive coordinators, and until some of those bigger jobs, at whatever LSU, Texas A&M just got filled. I think Ole Miss. Oh no, the LSU Charlie Weiss, but Ole Miss still has to fill one. I don't know if Florida's filled theirs. I mean, there's so many different variables going around the country that it might take, another couple days or a week.
At Jordan Kaye _23 is where you can go give him a follow on Twitter. Jordan, can you evaluate Shane's strategy of kind of circling the wagons around the Carolinas instead of stretching out a little bit more? And what kind of hay that's really brought into the barn? Has recruiting the states of South Carolina and North Carolina as heavily as he has that led to more retention, more buy-in? Can you characterize that at all?
I don't know. And it might be a little too early to say. I haven't done the full deep dive on how many guys they've retained from those places, but it certainly just makes sense, especially when you look at the state of North Carolina. No SEC schools. NC State hasn't been doing very well the last couple of years. Duke, somehow in the ACC title game, hasn't been like a monster. North Carolina's got their own problems. I mean, that's a very gettable state from a recruiting standpoint. And being an hour and a half away from Charlotte, it's kind of wild that, Will Muschamp didn't attack it more. I think it's a very important state. I mean, you're the closest SEC team to the entire, eastern seaboard above South Carolina. So why not go after those North Carolina kids? And they pulled in some of the best ones, getting the Harris twins out of Matthews, getting Noah Clark out of Durham, and Koski Barnes out of Greensboro. Those are all 4-star guys. It makes a lot of sense. And then I think, you look at what they've been able to do too in Washington, D.C., of not trying to have a base out there, but if they see a kid like Nick Harbor or Dylan Stewart, they feel comfortable enough to go up there. And it should be a pretty easy pitch of saying, hey, we are the closest SEC school to you. Actually, I don't know if maybe Kentucky's closer, but you get the point. Pretty quick flight. And yeah, it does make a lot of sense that they want to kind of build a fence around the Carolinas.
Jordan, did you say Koski Barnes?
I don't know. It's Koski? Or
No. I want it to be Koski because that'd be the greatest name ever. Fit. I mean, what a great fit, right?
I always think of these things in old newspaper headlines, and you can imagine he gets a pick six to seal a game, and it's Koski wins it. Koski wins it for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I think even if it is pronounced another way, they should lie just so we can get Koski playing for the Gamecocks. That'd be incredible.
It might be one of those things, you see players who go through 3 years and everyone calls them one thing, and then they get to be a senior. They're like, actually, you've been pronouncing my name kind of.
Leggett.
That would have happened.
That's right.
Yeah.
Apparently, Jordan, you're a little bit younger than I am. I don't know if you knew this. People have been pronouncing Chad Kroger from Nickelback's name wrong for decades. It's not Kroger, it's Kruger. He just never told us.
I saw an interview with Denzel Washington. His name was Denzel.
Yep, right.
So he couldn't have told anyone, 20 years ago.
Jordan, any truth to the rumors that Coastal is interested in Clayton White to be their next head coach? And what do you think Clayton's interest level might be?
I haven't heard that they are interested or looking or heard anything about interviews. So I'm not, I haven't heard anything that would say that is happening. But certainly, I don't know that Clayton wants that job. He's an NC State native. I think I saw somewhere that maybe, that job could be what he's looking for. But it's kind of surprising to me the last couple of years that Clayton White hasn't been named in more of these head coaching things. I think he is a guy who seems very well set up to take a head coaching job sooner than later. I don't know if it's going to be this year, next year, or in the future, but it would make a lot of sense. I think he's got a great personality, is shown to be a good recruiter, and is a heck of an X's and O's guys. And, you also got to like that he's been almost everywhere in the country. He's coached at Stanford, Western Kentucky, South Carolina, UConn. He has ties to a lot of different parts of the country. I think, the other thing that might be hard for him to want to take some of these group of 5 jobs is he's going to make $2 million next year, $2.1 million in 2027. He's got a pretty good gig at South Carolina. He's one of the 2 guys on Shane Beamer's staff who who's been here the entire time. Like, he's put down roots. It's probably pretty tough for him to leave, and I think it's okay if he wants to be picky and wait for something spectacular to come open.
Jordan, on a scale of 0 to 100, you can even include like the 0.5s. I'm just trying to get something out of you here. I mean, what in the world would it take on a scale of 0 to 100 in terms of your confidence level, thinking it's going to happen, thinking it's got a chance to happen, to get Garrett Riley, who's just up the road, to just swing on down to Columbia to call plays? How about that?
I'll put it at 22.
Ooh, that's higher than I thought you'd say.
How's that? I don't know. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. I think Garrett Riley is a pretty good offensive mind, has shown he can recruit, has shown, an ability to lead good offenses. I think kind of one of the big question marks would be, hey, the big thing that Shane Beamer needs to find is a guy that can develop quarterback talent. And it's hard to watch what Cade Klubnik did this year in regressing and then say, yep, we're going to bring that guy over. Yep. There's some precedent, I guess, with, Brad Scott doing the South Carolina to Clemson. Like, I guess it wouldn't be the craziest thing for him to go over, even Monty Lee in baseball. It's like, okay, it's not impossible. And the other thing you have to think is Garrett Riley came from TCU, and who was the athletic director? Jeremiah Donati. So there is a little, there are connections to that. It wouldn't be the craziest idea in the world. But I don't, haven't heard the name kind of circled around. But
that's why planes hadn't been in the air, because Riley can get there quick, Jordan. Come on, man.
Maybe he's just driving. Yeah, maybe he's driving. They don't need a plane flight.
That's
easy
right.
to keep off. It would be, I think, certainly, like, Shane Beamer is going to interview a bunch of people, and then there's going to be other jobs around. Like, I think it's really hard right now to get a gauge for who South Carolina is going to hire. And you're right. If if no one's on a plane, it makes it that much tougher.
Jordan, do you think, and to steal Cole's words here, do you think Shane Beamer hung himself with his comments a couple of days ago saying that we're going to be in the playoff next year? I mean, did he set that bar so high that he has said, I'm going to be in the playoff or I'm going to be fired?
Well, his thing wasn't, I'm going to be in the playoff. It was like, we're going to be in the hunt for the playoff.
Okay, fair.
I don't even know what that really means.
10-2, that's what it means. He's calling his shot 10-2.
I don't even, you could say 9-3. That's the point. Yeah. In the hunt is like a very vague term. No, he's certainly not afraid to go out on limbs and really declare that next season is going to be this masterful thing. I think he probably knows, like, missing a bowl next year would probably cost him his job. So I imagine that's where some of it's coming from. There's probably another piece of, hey, he's probably trying to talk to recruits and talk to the guys on his roster of saying, come back. It's going to be special next year. We are going to do this, and trying to set the expectations for the program of, hey, this wasn't the expectation. We do want to be competing for conference titles and playoffs, but man, he just loves to, he's almost going overboard with it. I mean, saying yesterday the thing of, like, I'm mad we're not preparing for an SEC title, and I don't know that any fan is, hearing that and pumping their fist like, yeah, me too.
Jordan, you're the best, man. Always appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, fellas. Have a good day.
You
Thanks.
too.
Jordan Kaye of the State Newspaper. We have him on every other week here during football season. When we come back, Cole, it is time to take a look around the sports world, see what's happening in our daily wires. Well, a ton happening in the sports world. Let's touch on all of it right now with our Daily Wires. The buzz is that former Burns Rebel and son of head coach Lane Fowler, Will Fowler, landed on SportsCenter's top 10 this morning. He hit a buzzer beater for Converse last night, lifting the Valkyries to a 72-70 win over NGU.
Unbelievable play. Here's the audio, Diesel, of how that sounded on ESPN this morning. Maybe. Sorry about that. Let me start it over.
I just come back to work and this is how you treat me. I thought we were on the same page. Merry Christmas. Top plays from Wednesday. Converse on North Greenville. Off the missed free throw. Will Fowler takes up the floor, hits a game winner from the logo. Take another look at it. Game-winning three with the clock winding down. Converse wins.
Unbelievable play, man. Unbelievable deep three for Will Fowler over a defender. I mean, it was contested, and North Greenville, gets buzzed right at the buzzer by Converse and Will Fowler. Incredible play, man.
Have you had a chance to talk to Lane yet about it this morning?
He was pretty stoked.
Proud Papa.
You can see the video of him running on the court.
Last night, Alabama beat Clemson 90-84. Clemson now 7-2 on the season. If you watch that game, Clemson fell behind early because Alabama was just shooting the lights out of the gym in the first half. Got up to a 15-point halftime lead. I think it was at 19 at one point early in the first half or late in the first half. But Clemson clawed their way back with a 54-point second half performance. Unfortunately, Cole, they went cold at the exact wrong time, allowing a 9-1 run in the final 2 minutes and 41 seconds of regulation. Clemson had a chance. They just couldn't close.
It was a good game.
It was.
A good game. It just, you said it, they kind of dug themselves in a hole right there. Yep. Basketball is a game of runs. It is.
The Upset Picks Challenge is open, Tolos. Get us your picks, 844-326-3663. This week, you're picking the 9 conference championship games. Locally, last night, Wofford beat PC 63-56. Furman went on the road and beat Elon 97-88. Paladins are 5-4 on the season. They're back in action on Saturday at 2:00 versus Harvard. Last night in high school basketball, Lawrence beat Woodruff 57-49. Landrum beat Walhalla 74-65. Liberty beat Pickens 60-46. MVP defeated Southside 70-66. TL Hanna over Wade Hampton 57-41. Woodmont over Spartanburg 66-64. Chesney defeated Greer Middle College 73-33. Daniel beat Pendleton 63-61, and Chapman upended Blue Ridge 75-69. So a lot of close games last night.
Good games, too.
Russell Blackston and the BHP Bears take on Oceanside tomorrow in the state championship game at noon.
Supposed to be some bad weather, though, down in Orangeburg, so we'll see what happens with state championship weekend this weekend. Games Friday and Saturday, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're having to move some games to Monday.
Looks like old Billy Napier might be coming back to the Sun Belt per On3 Sports. Billy Napier has emerged as a top name in the James Madison coaching search. He's also got some interest from Tulane, sending him back to Louisiana, where he had so much success at UL Lafayette. Tonight on Thursday Night Football, the Dallas Cowboys will travel to Detroit to take on the Lions. Detroit 3-point favorites over the Cowboys. If Dallas wins, playoff hopes remain alive, as they would have won 4 straight, would be 7-5-1. Dallas Cowboys 31-28 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs on Thanksgiving averaged 57.23 million viewers on CBS, making it the most watched regular season game in NFL history.
Unbelievable.
The early game between Green Bay and Detroit, won by the Packers, by the way, averaged 47.7 million viewers, making it the second most watched in league history.
That's wild.
A ton of viewership on Thanksgiving Day. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert, who recently had surgery on his fractured left hand, did not practice yesterday, but said he is preparing to play on Monday against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Big.
The early signing period began yesterday, and South Carolina football coach Shane Beamer and his staff were hopeful that a big-time flip would be coming their way, and it happened. They got their wish. Julian Walker from Dutch Fork, a 4-star edge, announced his commitment to the South Carolina Gamecocks, flipping from the Michigan Wolverines.
Man, how about that? His dad's on staff. Jordan mentioned it, but that is a big win for Shane Beamer and Gamecocks today.
Mentioned it earlier that Markel Blackwell, running backs coach for South Carolina, has been terminated, no longer on Shane Beamer's staff. And college football executives are finalizing a proposal that would increase the athlete rev share pool by $2.5 million next year.
More money.
Yep.
That's what we need.
No problems.
Just need a little bit more money. That's all we need. Diesel, a big, maybe consequential NFL weekend coming up, and you said it, starting tonight on Thursday Night Football. What to look for? Week 14 next. Well, good news for Carolina Panther fans out there. If you are a Carolina Panther fan, you don't have to get your hopes up. You don't have to worry about losing, winning, inconsistency, roller coaster. None of that this weekend, Diesel, because the Panthers are off this weekend.
Can't follow up that great win with a horrible loss if you don't play this weekend.
What a great idea that was. Great scheduling by Dan Morgan. He knew that. He knew it.
Yeah.
He knew they were going to beat the Rams.
You know, this is also the latest bye week in the NFL.
That's what I –
So the
Well,
Carolina
I'll tell you
Panthers –
the latest, like this year?
Yeah.
The last one.
The last one.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. No.
So the Panthers are getting a bye. Sitting at 7-6, they got a bye going into their last 4 games.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah, I like it.
They need this bye so bad, and they're getting it at exactly the right time for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a big advantage, especially with those 2 games against Tampa Bay looming, right? Because ultimately, if you want to make the playoffs, Diesel, if you're the Carolina Panthers, you're not making the playoffs as a wild card with your record. You've got to win the division, right? And you look at the remaining schedule. You said it, 4 games left, 2 of which are against Tampa Bay. So the division right there. But, man, this is going to be fun the next 4 weeks, us monitoring the entire NFL, Carolina Panther fans, Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans, monitoring the fact that the Carolina Panthers are in the playoff hunt. Not only are they in the playoff hunt, Diesel, they have a chance to win their division. And that's exciting. So I don't know. Look, Tampa Bay is dealing with some serious injuries. There's no doubt about that. And I think what Baker Mayfield, you haven't seen like Tampa Bay's best over the past month or so. And you are seeing the Panthers' best. You know, even though Dave Canales said a couple of days ago you still hadn't seen their best, I think you're seeing the best that we've seen this year in terms of complimentary football for the Carolina Panthers. So it'll be interesting to watch. Now, Tampa Bay this weekend, Diesel, they are, let's see here, they are at home hosting the New Orleans Saints. Saints are 2-10. So, like, if you're a Panther fan today, you would love the Saints somehow, some way to upset the Bucs this weekend. I don't know if that happens, but you start there when you look at, man, consequential games in the NFL this weekend, Diesel, what could happen, what to look for. Tampa Bay is an 8.5-point favorite over the New Orleans Saints. Mm-hmm. I thought it might be closer to 10, but only 8.5. That's just over a touchdown favorite, a couple of points over a touchdown. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the Bucs are dealing with some injuries. And if you're a Panther fan today on this Thursday or even leading into the weekend, you have never in your life been a bigger Saints fan than you are this weekend. Imagine what would happen for your playoff odds if that were to happen.
Goes way up. It means you don't necessarily have to win both games against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You'd still want to, obviously, but if you then could split with Tampa, it might make the picture that much better for you. It also depends on how much of this illness may still be running around that Buccaneers locker room.
Yeah.
I heard him a couple of weeks ago.
I don't know. When you talk about Carolina beating Tampa Bay twice, I would like to think they could. You know, I think at their best they can. And you said it, Panther fans want to beat them twice, but I don't know that that's realistic. You know, they're a good team. Tampa Bay is. Are they a great team? No, they're not a great team, but they're a really good team. And obviously you're going to get them once at home, right? Then you're going to have to go to their house, you know, one time. And not saying like there's no way it couldn't happen, but I don't know, Diesel. The Panthers are playing pretty good. You mentioned the bye. We've seen crazier things. And if they could somehow, some way run the table, imagine this Panther team going into the playoffs with this kind of momentum.
Well, this Bucs team has not been all that dominant this year. When
7-5,
when they're winning small. I mean, they were in a single score game against the Cardinals. That was a win. They were in a tight game on the road at Seattle that they won. They won a tight game against the Jets. You shouldn't be in a tight game against the Jets. They won in a tight game against the Texans early when the Texans were struggling, and against the Falcons also. So they're winning a lot of these division games and a lot of these NFC games close.
No, it's true.
They're not shutting teams down. They're not lighting up the scoreboards. And then again, you look over the past 4 weeks, they've lost 3 out of their last 4, and they were in a brutal stretch. They had Patriots on the road at the Bills, on the road at the Rams, and then the Cardinals. So you can guess which 3 of those games they lost and which one they won. But the Bucks are not the Bucks of old. They're not the Bucks of last season.
They're definitely beatable. You've seen it 5 times this year, right?
They play bad defense.
Yeah. Tolo's reminder, the Upset Picks Challenge is open. If you just tuned into the show, get your upset pick in at 844-326-3663. Also want to hear from you, Tolos, as we are talking NFL, going around the NFL, what to look for this weekend. Before we get into the full slate of games, Diesel, think about this. A quick stat for you. Baltimore running back Derrick Henry ranks tied for 4th in rushing touchdowns at 10 and 7th in rushing yards at 931 this season. Henry has 39 career games with at least 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, including 3 games this season, with 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown on Sunday against Pittsburgh. If Henry can put up 100 and 1 touchdown, Derrick Henry can become the 6th player all-time with 40 such career games, joining Pro Football Hall of Famers Emmitt Smith, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, LT, and Jim Brown. Additionally, Henry can tie Pro Football Hall of Famer Barry Sanders for the 4th most games with at least 100 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, including the postseason in NFL history. So if you are following player props or anything like that on Prize Picks or any other platform out there, maybe just note Derrick Henry could have a career day, literally. I mean, that guy's...
Who do you like in this game? I mean, it's both of these are 6-6 teams.
Yeah.
The Ravens seem to be finding themselves, and then, they ran into Cincinnati and the Bengals, and they looked bad in that game. Then again, the Steelers, they got an ancient Jurassic era quarterback,
and they hadn't looked good. The Steelers just haven't looked good recently. To start the season, Diesel, I think I caught myself believing into the Steelers hype a little bit. Aaron Rodgers had a couple of good games, right? Like, they look good in a few of those games, but their injury list right now, they've got, guys like TJ Watt, Patrick Queen, still injured. I know Lamar's questionable with that ankle, but I just don't love the way Pittsburgh's playing football right now.
Are they going to be pulling fans out of the stands who are wearing jerseys to the game that day to get out there and play?
I like the Ravens. I like the Ravens at home. It's one of the best rivalry games in the NFL. Those two teams, fan bases hate each other, much like Cowboys and Eagles fans. That'll be a lot of fun. Speaking of the Cowboys, Diesel, tonight the NFL weekend gets started. Dallas at Detroit. I don't know if you saw this, Tolos, but I retweeted a video. Thank God they're playing inside. It is a Snowmageddon. Is that right?
What was that you said? Thank God they're playing inside. Oh, it's almost like we should have covered roofs on inclement weather stadiums.
I want to be very clear. When my team season's on the line, yes, I want them inside. I want the thermometer set on 71.5. I want them hydrated. Yes, when my team's involved. But when my team's not involved and I'm watching, I could care less, Okay, I could care less. I love it. But tonight, no. Tonight, they need to be indoors. Sign it, seal it, deliver it, lock it, throw away the key.
Wasn't there a college game last week? I think it was at Illinois that the weather was exactly like that.
Oh, yes, bad.
Brutal weather.
It's bad. And it even started snowing pretty good in the Ohio State-Michigan game, too. But, Diesel, you said it in the Daily Wires. Dallas with a win tonight goes to 7-5-1. If they win the game, they are hovering somewhere between 40 and 50% chance when it comes to making the playoffs. They would obviously probably need to win out, which is a tall task. But the loser of this game tonight, even though Detroit's favored, Vegas kind of has it as a pick 'em right now. It's a 3.5-point spread, but the loser of the game tonight, their playoff chances really diminish. So here we are, and fans think about this, Tolos think about this, on December the 4th. This is why I love the NFL. You still got 4 or 5 weeks of the NFL season remaining, Diesel, and tonight is truly a playoff game. Mm-hmm. Truly. I mean, like you circle it, color it however you want, but tonight's a playoff game because the loser's out. The winner still has a really, really good chance. Detroit, the story is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, if that guy doesn't go, they're in trouble tonight. Right now, he's listed as questionable. I'll be honest with you. I saw the injury last week. I thought he'd be out for a couple of weeks, Diesel. Amon-Ra St. Brown, their offense runs through him. If he goes tonight, they've got a good chance. If he doesn't go, it's going to be a challenge because, like I said, what they do offensively runs through him. And some of Dallas's weaknesses in the secondary can be affected by a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown pretty quickly. And they've got some other injuries as well. It's a dinged up Detroit team. I like Dallas tonight, obviously being biased, but The story here is, does Amon-Ra St. Brown play in a few hours? I guess we should know.
Yeah, and Dak Prescott's playing well the last couple of games. I mean, he 268 against the Raiders, 355 against the Eagles, 320 against the Chiefs. He is finding another gear right now for the Dallas Cowboys, and it just also goes to show how much of this Detroit Lions success ran through Ben Johnson. He leaves. They go from a dominant team
they don't look the
to
same.
a good but not great team, and they're kind of sitting there on that edge and possibly losing out on the top spot or losing out on a playoff spot. And it just goes to show that Dan Campbell owes a lot to his old.
There's
OC.
no doubt. And I'll tell you this: my hot take is, I was thinking about that the other day. I think the Lions missed their championship window. I do. I think they missed it. They had a small window. You said it with Ben Johnson. That guy was phenomenal. They were really, really good the past couple of seasons. And Diesel, you kind of saw it with Philadelphia. Kellen Moore leaves as the OC, and the Eagles don't really have an offensive identity right now. I think they missed it. And that's a gut punch if you're a fan. Obviously, you can still turn seasons around and have good years, but I think you're 100% right. I don't think people realize enough how good Ben Johnson was.
And Ben Johnson's turned the Bears and Caleb Williams around real fast. He deserves a lot of credit. I mean, I'd be shocked if he's not Coach of the Year.
I'm talking about in one season.
Right.
In one season, Ben Johnson. I mean, there are
from the bottom to the top.
Yeah. That doesn't happen. By the way, Coach of the Year news, breaking news here, Diesel, going out of the NFL for a quick second. From the ACC, Virginia's Tony Elliott has been named ACC Coach of the Year. No surprise there. Guided Virginia to an ACC championship game for the first time since 2019. Cavaliers 10-2 overall, 7-1 in the ACC. Second only 10-win season in program history. It's only the second time Virginia Tech's ever won 10 games. Think about that.
Hey, has Penn State called him yet? you mentioned Mike Tomlin there when we were talking about the Steelers. I mean, there's a lot of people thinking that Ben Roethlisberger even said it. Maybe it's time for Tomlin to walk away and go be the coach at Penn State.
That's not a terrible idea. I was thinking about it earlier. Why haven't they thrown the house, the bank, the Brinks trunk, everything at Matt Rule? Did I miss where Matt Rule got locked, or not locked up, but I guess locked up in a new contract?
He said it that was a few months ago. Didn't he?
I
don't know if he got a new contract, but I know that he stated it publicly that he's not interested in going anywhere.
I'd still be.
Oh yeah, make him
Are
him
you
say
there?
no. Literally back up a moving truck full of cash and make him go out there and pull the door down.
Tony Elliott, by the way, Diesel got 57 votes for Coach of the Year in the ACC. Jake Dickert, Wake Forest, got 13. Brent Key, Georgia Tech, got 5. Manny Diaz got 2. Mario Cristobal 1. Dave Doran got 1.
Did Dave vote for himself? Come on, Dave. You can't vote for yourself.
And
so lame.
Rhett Lashley got 1. How in the world does Dave Doran get a vote? That is pitiful.
The Leprechaun of Lyman says nobody wants to coach at Penn State. That's true.
Yeah.
They're going to have to hire a local high school coach.
It's going to be I think they're just going to promote Terry. Back it up, Terry.
Yeah,
I really do.
I would put him on a 3-year deal, but talk to Terry on the side, be like, yeah, we're gonna really reevaluate this middle of next year, because we're probably gonna step over you for somebody who's a big time candidate next year.
Also Sunday this weekend, Seahawks, Falcons. Seahawks favored by 7. The Bengals, Bills. Finally a watchable game involving the Bengals since they got Joe Burrow back, Diesel. They're 4-8 on the season, but now with Buffalo, I don't want to say reeling, not looking like they're playing their best football. I like Buffalo. I want Buffalo to win. I really want Buffalo to get over the hump and win a Super Bowl. I just don't know that they're as complete of a team as we thought they were maybe at the beginning of the season.
It's good to see Joe Burrow back out there. He looks locked in. That press conference where he said, I'm not paying attention to what's going on at LSU. The dude seems like he is in the zone. He's ready to go.
And then at 1:00 Sunday, Titans, Browns, Shedeur Sanders, part 3. Is that right? Part 3 for Shedeur Sanders? Right. Cam Ward's been bad. 7. Do you realize, without looking, do you have a guess? Cam Ward was so highly touted out of Miami.
Sure.
If you had to guess what his touchdown to interception ratio is, have you looked at it?
I haven't.
But
the fact that you're asking me this question leads me to believe it's not good.
Oh, you don't think it is?
I'm gonna
But
say,
they're 1-11, Diesel. They're 1-11.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that he has thrown 5 touchdowns to 15 interceptions.
No, it's more like 7 touchdowns to 6 interceptions.
Oh, okay. It's not as bad as I thought.
Not as bad. Yeah,
he's just Bryce Young 2.0.
Right now, he is. They're bad. I mean, they're horrible. Like they're one.
Would you trade for him right now, Bryce Young and Cam Ward straight up? No. Okay. Okay.
If I'm Carolina,
yeah.
Oh no.
Upside. Little upside for bringing in Cam.
He just hadn't shown me anything. Now, him having the right coach matters. There's no doubt. I mean, it doesn't feel like he's in the right situation at all. But no thanks. I'll pass on that. How important is this 1:00 game in the AFC? Colts, Jags, both at 8-4. Diesel, Trevor Lawrence. You know how we've been saying this. I mean, this is a prove-it type game for Trevor against the Colts team that's really been bad in the last couple of weeks. They started out, hair on fire, but the Colts haven't looked good. This is basically you win, you're in the playoffs, you lose, and you're going to be probably on the outside looking in. A must-win game for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has seen big stages in the NFL. Like, I'm not saying he hasn't, but I do think we're also entering a time with Trevor Lawrence, Diesel, where if he wants to be the quarterback we all want him to be, he's got to win games like this one on Sunday.
Yeah, it's got to happen now. Follow-up question. Would you trade for Bryce Young for Trevor Lawrence right now?
100%.
Yeah?
100%. Okay. I still think there's a ton of upside.
He deserves that opportunity. Look, he's done his time in Jacksonville. Give him the opportunity to play under a different system, to play in a different city, under a whole different regime. And I think Trevor Lawrence could come alive, but he's also not exactly a spring chicken in the NFL anymore. He's starting to get to that middle part of his career where if you don't do it now, you're going to go down as one of those big-time busts. So if I'm Trevor, I'm telling my agent, get me out of Jacksonville now.
And then the other big game, Diesel, as we run off the break in the NFC, my goodness, 4:25 Sunday, Bears-Packers. Bears, you mentioned Ben Johnson. They're 9-3. The Packers 8-3-1. This game is in Green Bay. Green Bay is a 6.5-point favorite. Jordan Love's been sensational this year. Not as many yards as last year, but still 19 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Pretty dang stout. And then the Bears. I mean, we talked about it a second ago. Who would have thought on the 4th day of December, we're sitting here talking about Diesel. If they win Sunday, they're a 10-win team. I mean, think about that. The Chicago Bears.
I don't even know what it's like to be alive while the Chicago Bears are any good.
No.
I mean, the best they ever did was like that 1 year under Jay Cutler, and they've been awful outside of that. When we come back, let's talk to another man, myth, and legend here in the upstate, Pete Yanity of WSPA. He's going to join us next. Going to talk all things upstate sports with our next guest, the man with the golden voice, a local legend, WSPA sports director, Pete Yanity, joining the show. We always love it when you get a chance to come on with us, Pete. I'm going to start here. Simply put, did Clemson get some, most, or all of what they needed on National Signing Day?
I get the impression that they did as well as they could do. They had some late flips, obviously, down the stretch. Was that the byproduct of the season they were having? It's hard to really ever tell in this day and age of backroom conversation, so to speak, and you never know what better offer might have come. It's just the reality of the situation that, you know, it may have nothing to do with how well you recruited a kid. It may be all about certain factors that just weren't apparent many years ago, but changing age. I do not claim to be the recruiting expert that others will either claim to be or actually are. But I will say that, you know, I think the assessment can be just looking kind of across the class. They filled some needs. I am always one who subscribes to the theory of check back in 5 years, 4 years. Trouble is, most of these kids tend to move on from school to school, whether it's, and not so much from Clemson, but from a lot of other places. So it's hard to even gauge on that right now.
Pete, what do you make of how both of these schools, Clemson and South Carolina, recruit in state? We know that Clemson got a guy from Dorman and Anderson who could be a very immediate impact player. We also saw today with South Carolina, Julian Walker flipping from Michigan to South Carolina. The Gamecocks have now signed 4 of the top 5 players in the Palmetto State. Seems as if Beamer is leaning in and honing in a little bit more on the in-state players than Dabo Sweeney. But I don't know that, you know, these guys have a different approach when it comes to in-state recruiting, because you've heard them, I've heard them, we've all heard them say that they want in-state recruiting to be a big part, but it just seems like Beamer's doing a little bit more locally right now. Is that kind of how you feel it as well?
Well, I think that obviously each is going to try to get the best players in the state. When Clemson, you know, took it up a notch last decade, their recruiting profile changed quite a bit. They suddenly were able to get into some places nationally that maybe they hadn't in the past, and for better or for worse, they went down that pathway. I think that's been part of it. Shane Beamer's done a really good job in state, just like, you know, Steve Spurrier did a really good job in state. This recent group of successful guys they've gotten in state now, you don't know if they're going to end up playing like Marcus Lattimore, Alshon Jeffrey, you know, so on down the line. You don't know if you know, it's all going to play out like that. But I think that, you know, they tend to target differently. The Anderson kid, it's interesting. I don't want to put, you know, too much on him, but Isaiah Simmons was very much a hybrid kind of guy for Clemson's defense. And you know, he's a DB who kind of looks like he plays with a linebacker mentality. That's how they use him at Dorman. And I could really see where that might end up being an area that, you know, he may be able to flourish at the college level. I don't know if he necessarily has a body right now to help, but, you know, to help right away in that type of role. However, I think it's fair to say that, you know, he's the guy that should help speed-wise. But, you know, it's really ever hard to say. There just may not be a fit with a kid. I mean, would Clemson have wanted the Currents kid, the receiver that South Carolina got? I don't know enough about it to tell you that, you know, they were how close they were, but I would say that, you know, that's probably the kind of guy that they would, you know, be very much trying to be in on. But, you know, they brought in a bunch of kids, you know, several 4-stars for what that's worth. Well, you know, they got 4 and 5 stars in their roster that have lived up to it. They've got 4 and 5 stars that haven't. And the same thing can be said about South Carolina or any other school. So I do think Clemson still is trying to have, as best I can tell, a good foothold in the state. But is it more of an emphasis than South Carolina, less of an emphasis than South Carolina, and vice versa? I don't know that you can say that necessarily that's by design.
Tolos, you see Pete Yanity on television on WSPA. You've heard him calling games on TV and radio here in the upstate for many years. Pete, I know I've heard you on a lot of SoCon games, and I always love hearing you do so. Now that the 16-team FCS playoff is set to get going, only Mercer from the Southern Conference got in. We all know what's happened over the last 10 years with some of the power programs leaving the Southern Conference. Do you believe that this conference is built to, over time, regain some prominence as an elite force in FCS football as it was all those years ago?
I don't know if it's close to getting back to a time when you could say easily right out of the box, even in a 16-team field, which is what it used to be before they expanded to 24, that, going to a season, you assumed you'd have 3 SoCon teams getting in, or at the very least, knocking on the door, and 2 would get in, and the third might just be, caught up in the numbers. This probably should have been a multi-bid league this year. It was sitting right there for Western Carolina, even with their heartbreaking tough loss that they had late in the year against Mercer. They still had an opportunity against ETSU, and ETSU was a team that, a bounce either way, they would have had a much different season. It was a very good ETSU team, but I think that again, we're living in the portal era, and you have so many kids that move on from these schools, and at the same time they restock. But Teron Dickens in the old days would have a couple of years left, you would think, at Western Carolina, their quarterback. Well, he went into the portal within hours of their final game. And so it's hard to tell how quickly you can restock the cupboard and how well you can do it. And, there are benefits, there are pluses and minuses to the portal for an FCS team, a SoCon team, and a team, unless you're like a North Dakota State, where they've kind of got the formula that works perfectly for them, because the kids they get tend to stay there, even the kids that they maybe beat some group of 5s on, and the rare time where they might beat a Power 4 on. But the transients you see in the Southern Conference, it's literally a hit or miss year to year thing. So I think Kerwin Bell at Western Carolina has done a really interesting job building that program. He's got so many connections in Florida. He's brought in so many kids from Florida that really helped them right away, that probably could help a lot of group of 5 programs. So I think that they're going to be a team that's hovering near the top. Can they finally break through is another question. But, places like a Chattanooga, they got pillaged after spring ball. They lost 8 starters after spring practice. They suddenly had to, regroup and rebuild, and bring a bunch of kids in that didn't go through spring with them. So it's a, never ending deal. A Wofford or a Furman, they have to live in the portal just like everyone else. How quickly can they rebuild is always a big question. At the, Shane Beamer signed a class of what I guess when Tristan Lewis makes it official later today, which he's expected to do, South Carolina signed a class of 14 guys. Early signing period is followed by a new portal, basically the first, 3 weeks of January. And then you got the February period. I think South Carolina, I don't know how many more they plan to sign, but I think that's probably by design, so they can go hit the portal, get the guys they need to fill the holes. Obviously, there may be some vacancies on their roster of guys that could have come back and started. It's just such a weird way to assess things from season to season. In a lot of these, especially group of 5 and FCS leagues, is it really even worth doing a preseason poll anymore in any sport? Because it's just such a knuckleball. I mean, how do you really know from year to year? So back to your original question, I think the SoCon will get back to getting multiple teams in soon. It'll be the byproduct of being able to hit it right with the portal, because chances are if you get a guy in the portal, he's probably only going to be there for a year if he puts up some really big numbers. It's just the reality of what they've all had to come to realize.
So, Pete, with a conference like the SoCon or similar conferences, from what you've seen, what you've heard, the people you've talked to, what attracts players to those programs like a SoCon team? You mentioned the Wofford, you mentioned Furman. With NIL budgets not being near as big, near as large at that level, what do you, in your mind and what you've heard, what attracts players to those destinations?
Well, the fact that several of the SoCon teams now are opting in to the whole rev share thing is big. NIL at that level, yeah, again, you're going to generate what you can generate as a player. You may be able to come along a booster who wants to help out NIL, and they go through a process that, they've set up for NIL. I think an appealing thing, I think the SoCon, they got a lot of good schools, and, I would think there's still some kids interested in getting a college degree. So I think there's appeal there. I think there's the reality of, I've got a body that it was really good for high school, but it's probably an FCS level, not an FBS. That's a big part of the story. I mean, at the end of the day, the cream is always going to rise, and the kids that probably belong on an FBS team are going to be there. And eventually the FCS kids will, find their level of water if they don't do so out of high school. I just think, here's the reality. There is the agent now. There's the representation in college. That's great. It's something that they do. Okay. Well, if they're going to know a lot of people at other schools, and they're going to know needs at other schools, and if there's a better opportunity for the kid financially, I mean, I think it's a reality. They're probably going to look at that, and they're going to have that presented to them. So there's a lot of appeal at SoCon schools. There's a lot of appeal at a lot of schools on the FCS level in the group of 5. And there's a lot of appeal, frankly, at the Power 4 schools that aren't in that cool group. But if they've got really good players, it's like a small market baseball team. Once the time comes to move on in free agency happens, then you're going to look for the best, the best paycheck or the best opportunity in terms of, where you can find your way in the lineup. That being said, Seth Greenberg said something to me in an interview a few years ago at a Southern Conference preseason media day, and he was way ahead. He's the first one I ever heard say it. This goes back 3 or 4 years now. It's a deal where they're going to have to go to contracts. Just think about it. Could Major League Baseball exist if every guy was on a 1-year contract? It couldn't. And the old owner of the Oakland A's once suggested that, Charlie Finley, when free agency first came about. The NFL couldn't exist if you didn't have the 4- and 5-year situation with guys who you sign as rookies. Just to change your, for movement and not even the fact if you go somewhere else, you've got to sit out. All that has been changed. I don't know if it was the right thing or the wrong thing to do, but I do know it basically means you're living year to year, and every coach will tell you the whole system is broken because of it, because it leads to, players making a jump. And then, the next thing they know, RJ Godfrey, back with Clemson, having a great year, was quoted as saying, "Why did I ever leave?" Well, because he thought he had a better opportunity at Georgia. He didn't. If he was bound to Clemson by way of a contract, you would think that might work out differently, and maybe you'd have a little bit more of a settled down situation. And in the long term, it may be the best avenue to go for everybody involved.
So, Pete, it's funny. We just talked about the SCORE Act earlier this week on the show, and maybe this is a big question we don't have enough time to cover. Why do you think there's not the political will to get behind the SCORE Act to even get it to a vote? Because it didn't even get to a vote earlier this week. They took it off the docket before they even had an opportunity to look at it. And to your point about the game being broken, Scott Frost, head coach at UCF, just came out earlier today and said the sport is broken. More and more coaches are saying it.
Yeah. I think from the congressional standpoint, I think, for one, I would suppose there are folks around the NCAA that would prefer that they move forward just regulating themselves and not getting Congress involved, because with that can come a whole new political avenue in which now suddenly is it in a senator's best interest somewhere to, try to jump on the bandwagon and try to browbeat colleges just for his own political gain or her own political gain. There's always that possibility. And you just don't want to, I think the NCAA would like to be a self-governing body. The trouble is, of course, is that the various court rulings that have gone against the organization or the individual schools as a result of the organization, makes it difficult for it to continue to self-govern, because, the governing committee, the oversight committees or whatever, and all the different committees within the NCAA that answer to the overall general membership, they can pass all the different things they want. They can come out tomorrow and say, we're going to go back to you've got to sit out if you transfer from one NCAA school to the other. And of course, someone will take it to court and they'll probably get shot down. So where the SCORE Act goes from here is a great question. However, at some point, I think, and you're going to have to get to a collective bargaining component in all this. You're going to have to get to a place where you're sitting down with the schools, which are the NCAA, and you're getting, the athletes are going to have some form of representation. You're going to have to get some kind of collective bargaining. It sounds weird to apply that to college athletics, but you just can't have a deal where the ruling body says we want to do this, and the non-ruling body, but those who are basically making the games happen, say we're going to run to court and not let you do that, because it's just a cat chasing its tail. And it, as Jerry Seinfeld once said, you end up, with he was talking about pro sports. You end up basically pulling for laundry because it's just different players every year. They're changing uniforms, and that's what you're kind of ending up with. And again, at the bottom line is, it must be a nightmare for a compliance office and the folks who handle transcripts when these kids transfer from one school to the other to figure out what hours fit, what hours they can bring along, what classes would be acceptable at one school to another. I don't know how they do it. And the whole APR thing, how are you even going to be able to calculate that over the next few years? It's really confusing.
Pete, my last question for you. You mentioned Teron Dickens of Western, who has declared himself in the portal. You've seen Dickens play. You've also seen high-level quarterbacks across the country in Division I play, at the likes of SEC programs. Where would you fit him in for fans that have not seen Dickens? A lot of people in the upstate have heard about him, but most have not seen him play. Where could you see him fitting in as well?
He's a good arm, accurate passer. The height is probably what, led him to the FCS level. So from being a pocket guy, that wouldn't necessarily work great. A good runner, but not necessarily a guy who you would say he's a very good extender of plays. And, the way Kerwin Bell runs his offense, he's trying to get it out quickly. His quarterback's kind of going to be a point guard kind of thing. He completed his first 46 passes at Wofford because, again, if you look back at that game, Wofford was basically giving them everything underneath and they just didn't want to get beaten over top. I think he could excel in a group of 5 league. I'm not smart enough to tell you that he could walk right into a Power 4 program and immediately make an impact like, Carson Beck would going from Georgia to Miami, or for that matter, Cam Ward from what he come from, like Washington State or something when he went to Miami. So I don't know that he could necessarily be a Power 4 guy. He could easily work in an offense, like Darian Mensah, phenomenal player. I thought he was the ACC Offensive Player of the Year for what he was able to do with Duke's offense. I think he could be in that kind of role. So therefore, that's a Power 4 program. So he can impact a program in that regard. That's just my opinion. I'm not smart enough to tell you that I'm dead solid exact on that, but I could see him being in an offense where they move the pocket a lot, aren't necessarily counting on a guy to stay in there and step up in the pocket. But if he's in the right place, he is capable of being a pocket quarterback. I thought he was that quite a bit at Western. I just don't know at an FBS level he'd be able to do that.
Pete, you're the best. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. I wish I could give you even better depth. The recruiting thing, I'm still trying to wrap my head around. And again, I was just thinking about the other day. I don't know how you're going to be able to evaluate a class 2 years down the road, because in a lot of schools, not necessarily those here in state, but a lot of schools elsewhere, just look at it and how the turnover they have each year. And, Virginia, they're playing in the HC title game this week. 30 transfers came in this year, helped them out. But, they didn't recruit them out of high school, and, or they didn't sign them out of high school. They probably recruited a lot of the kids. They just got them the second time around.
Talk to you soon, man. Always appreciate you. Pete Yanity, WSPA 7. One interesting thing, though, Teron Dickens is the same height Diesel is Diego Pavia.
Yeah.
5'11". 5'11" kind of guy. I don't know.
Find a team that runs maybe some spread principles at the G5 level or a lower level Power 4 and see what happens, roll the dice.
You never know.
He's not going to step in somewhere that needs a big pro style type of quarterback or maybe even a dual threat. But if there's a team that really likes to move the pocket a lot, like Pete said, I think he would fit.
Well, Diesel, speaking of fit, Clemson didn't fit the bill last night when it comes to beating quality opponents. Listen, before you start yelling at me, Clemson fans, I'm talking about to the likes of Alabama. Alabama's a very good basketball team. Just a slow start proved to be too much. We'll dive into what happened with Clemson and Alabama last night next. Man, a tough one last night for Clemson against a really good Alabama team, by the way, number 12 in the country. We'll see if they move up in next week's rankings, Diesel. But the ACC SEC Men's Challenge last night, 90-84, Alabama on top of Clemson. It was a 45-30 first half. And ultimately, Clemson came back. They were in the fight. They outscored Bama 54-45 in the second half. But ultimately, you look at what happened in the first half. That was tough to come back out of if you were Clemson last night.
Yeah, Clemson couldn't hit a shot, couldn't get in a rhythm in the first part of that first half, and Alabama was just on fire.
Yeah,
I mean, they were
everything.
Not missing anything. I think they made somewhere in the range, and I'm kind of remembering off of the play-by-play, somewhere in the range of like 9 of their first 10 shots or something like that. I mean, they couldn't miss. They were just chucking it up from everywhere, hitting threes.
Well, they did shoot 47% from the field. Clemson, when you look at the three-point shot, Diesel, the three-point shot didn't fall last night for the Tigers. 21% last night for Clemson. And then you also look at the flip side, Alabama, 35%. Three-point shot. They shot the ball better. You said it. They started off better. They out-rebounded. Clemson out-rebounded Alabama in the second half. It was flipped, obviously, in the first half. But, I watched that game last night, and I thought, we make a lot of basketball, but I said it earlier in the Daily Wires, Diesel. It's really simple. It is really, really simple. Basketball is a game of runs. And like that clock, and that second half clock stops, you better be on the right side of the run because Clemson went on a fantastic run in the second half. Bama turned the ball over a couple of times, right? Clemson capitalized. They had 12 fast break points, several of those in the second half. They also were really good down low. Again, you have to be when your shot's not falling. I mean, they had 50 points in the paint last night, but a game of runs, Diesel. Clemson almost wished that clock ended when their run was going on. Unfortunately, Bama went on one more run last night.
Yeah, and I don't know if this Clemson team got tired down the stretch, if they kind of wore themselves out in a chase to get back even with Alabama, but yeah, they just hit a wall there in the last 2.5 minutes of the game, and it's tough to kind of explain why something like that happens. You would think that after having been through a tough game against Georgia, a tough game against West Virginia, those were two very different games, by the way. In the Georgia game, both teams are scoring in the mid-90s. In the West Virginia game, upper 60s. Yeah. Clemson reached 70 points in that game. You would think that they would have been prepared a little bit. And let's not forget that this Alabama team is the number 12 team
really
in the country.
Really good team.
And they got some really, really good players on that team. So Alabama with Amari Allen and some of those guys on that team, they were just incredible last night. And the ACC took it on the chin in day number 2 of the ACC SEC Challenge, and ultimately lost the head-to-head challenge. I think it was somewhere like 9-6 in the total matchups between the ACC and the SEC teams. When we come back, Tolos, it is your opportunity to call us, 844-326-3663. Let your voices be heard. The Tolo Takeover is next. Tolos, it is your time to shine. 844-326-3663. I want to hear from Dewey, believe it or not. I do want to hear from Dewey. I want to hear from Tom in Somerville. I want to hear from Dan B. I want to hear from all of you. And a Tolo who's never called the show before. Get out your phones and dial 844 fan phone 844-326-3663. It is your chance to take over these airwaves and talk about literally anything you want to talk about. Anything that is on your mind. And I'll bring this to the table, Cole, as we're waiting for these phone lines to light up. You and I got into it on Monday about the SCORE Act. I brought it up there with Pete Yanity, and a Tolo, of course, reminded me that Cole was right about the SCORE Act not happening the other day. Well, it's not that it hasn't happened, Tolo. It's the fact that it got postponed. The bill was not killed. They postponed the vote on the bill. Now, I'm reading some Ross Dellinger tweets right now. Dude does a phenomenal job covering the ins and outs of sports. He's got quotes here from a couple of Congress people who say that the biggest bugaboo for them right now is that the bill seeks to restrict some player payments, but doesn't seek to restrict some of the buyouts that coaches are getting for going to coach somewhere else or be fired or whatever. And I would be 100% behind limiting buyouts for these coaches, especially in the states that have such screwed up systems like Louisiana, where the people of Louisiana are on the hook for paying coaches that aren't even coaching at their schools anymore.
I'd like to do, I don't know if it's out there, I would like to do a study on how many schools and how many states are set up like Louisiana to where, like, I know even Shane, and correct me if I'm wrong, Shane Beamer is a state employee, right?
Should be, yeah.
So that's, I just wonder what the difference is in terms of like state by state, with Beamer being a state employee, but like our governor, doesn't have the final say, or at least not yet, in terms of if Shane Beamer should be hired or fired. And then you brought up Louisiana and just how crazy that situation is. It feels weird. I don't know.
There should not be any system at all
what's your name?
Where fans of other schools or people who are not fans at all should be on the hook for paying a coach's buyout. There's no reason for that. Think about that, Cole. There's McNeese State fans. Yep. There's Louisiana Tech fans. There's Tulane fans whose tax money is going to be going to get rid of Brian Kelly. And to me, that is a criminal thing, to take my money to pay somebody I don't even support, which I guess happens in this country every day.
Yeah. Billy Napier, by the way, it looks like it will be final Billy Napier to JMU. How about that?
I love the hire.
Wow.
I love the hire. Billy Napier. I have a lot of respect for Billy Napier as a coach, and I know a lot of Florida fans don't, but he was really good at Louisiana. Good thing about Billy Napier is you know what you're going to get. You know who is coming into your division.
That's a good hire.
That is a good coach, very good coach. But I don't know that Billy Napier is going to have JMU back to the spot that they're in right now next year.
Let me tell you this. He better. He better, because JMU doesn't miss a beat. They don't.
No, they don't.
They don't miss a beat.
They have hit on multiple coaches in a row.
Ooh. By the way, also Colorado hiring Sacramento State head coach Brennan Marion as its next offensive coordinator, sources tell On3 Sports. Former UNLV OC just wrapped up his first season as an FCS head coach. And Prime, getting a little primer. Let's go to the phone lines. Diesel, Dale, first up in the Tolo takeover. Again, Tolos, whatever. You want to sound off about sports, non-sports, your wife, whatever it may be. Here's your opportunity, 844-326-3663. What's up, Dale?
Well, let's start with the conference championship. Okay. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see John Gruden, what he came out with, but I absolutely love his model, and I think that the CFP should adopt it.
Enlighten me, Dale. I haven't seen this.
Okay, so for some reason, all of the top seeds have to play this weekend, while all of the lower seeds are taking byes, correct?
Yep.
You've got Alabama playing Georgia. You got Ohio State, Indiana, blah, 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 blah. You still play those games. But for all these other teams, your Miami, Notre Dame, your Oregon who gets a bye, whatever, match them up against each other, and then you get a true 12-team playoff. Why should these upper seeds have to play another game, have to go through the possibility of getting another loss and then falling back when you know that, Alabama's going to be in, Georgia's probably going to be in, Ohio State, Indiana. The outcome of this game just gives you a bye later on in the future, whatever, what have you.
Dale, somebody sent that video to me. I watched a couple of minutes of it, not the entire video. I would play it. I just don't know if there are any F-bombs in it. If there's not any F-bombs.
There's not. It's clean, and it is a great watch.
Now, what if there is, though? Who's gonna rehire us if we get fired for an F-bomb going over there? Dale said it was clean.
I remember it being clean. I don't remember him dropping one.
I sent it to Diesel. We can play it here in a few minutes.
Do it. It's a great listen. Okay, 7 minutes.
Okay.
Second. Let's talk about these people who play fantasy football are all hyped up about it, and then after 2 weeks, and they're 1-1 or 0-2, and it's like, screw it, I'm done.
Yeah. Next topic, Dale. Next topic.
That feels pointed, Dale.
I didn't know you were included in that. I'm sorry. I apologize, Cole. I'm sorry. I'm 10-2. I don't know what.
Oh, wow.
11-2.
Wow.
I don't know what I'm.
Must be nice.
Well, you're not playing anybody because Cole never
That's
sets
true.
his lineup.
Well, yeah, but there's 11 other people that are, including myself.
All right. Next topic. What's three?
What's three? Let's go Cowboys. I heard Amon-Ra's game time decision, but I highly doubt he played.
I'll tell you what, I told Diesel a minute ago, I hate to say this and make it about one guy, but for me right now, tonight, hinges on whether he plays or not. If he does, they can win, they can beat us, and I think they might. If they don't, I like our chances a lot. I'm never saying one NFL game hinges on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but their entire offense runs through that guy. So he's listed as questionable. I don't know if those decisions are made an hour before the game, 2 hours. I don't know, Dale. The game's at 8:15. So, again, I'm never
90 minutes before.
90
minutes before.
Okay, so 90 minutes before 8:15.
Yeah, so you're looking around 6:45 if he's going to play or not.
Okay.
If he's not, you have got to load the box and you have got to stop Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
Because if Jahmyr Gibbs runs all over you, we don't stand a chance.
No, you're right. Quinnen Williams, though, he can change that. Hey, let me give you a wild stat real quick, Dale. Wild stat, Cowboys related, real quick before you go. Talking about stopping the run game. Listen to this. This is I retweeted this earlier today, by the way. This is an insane Cowboys rushing yards per game allowed this season. Before the Quinnen Williams trade, Dallas was 28th in the NFL in yards allowed rushing per game. Post Quinnen Williams, they're allowing guys 45 yards a game. That is number 1 in the NFL. They went from 28th in the NFL to number 1 in the NFL from one guy.
All it takes is a big guy to plug up a hole. That's all it takes.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know what Kenny Clark's been doing. I have no idea what he's been doing. I mean, he's been complimenting Quentin Williams, but it took Quentin Williams to get there before you really heard Kenny Clark do anything.
Yeah. Good players help, good players. So
the fourth thing you mentioned, the last thing you mentioned was the wife. Gentlemen, look, I love the women. I love my wife. My wife is a beautiful woman. She is sweet, mother to 3 boys, and my daughter when she comes and visits. But why can she not figure out how to work the TV and then gets mad at me when I explain it to her like a 5-year-old because she doesn't know which input is the PlayStation so that she can watch a DVD. My mind is blown. And then gets mad at me for talking to her like that. And she's like, well, it's so funny you could do electronics, but why can't you fix anything else?
Oh, wow.
I'm not a certified plumber. I'm sorry, I'm not an auto mechanic.
We need more complaints about wives.
Let me guess, Dale. She can do like the 12-step process to paint her nails and seal the nails and get all that done, but she can't figure out how to hit the input button on a remote.
How did you know she went to cosmetology school?
See, Diesel knew.
Oh,
Thanks.
it gets better. I'm paying $100 a month on a student loan for a haircut that gets buzzed by a number 3 blade.
Oh, that's
Thanks,
tough.
Dale.
Thanks, Dale. This might. I don't know. Dale might have just started. This might become like just let me fuss about my wife segment.
Hey.
By the way, real quick, I love this text. JT and Greer, where was it? We were talking about taxes. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Keith and TR. He said, if that's the case, I'll gladly pay a little extra in taxes to fire Shane Beamer.
Keith, are you a Gamecock fan or are you a Clemson fan?
I think Gamecock.
Yeah, so he wants him gone.
Yeah. Tom in Somerville's next. What's up, Tom?
Hey, guys. Speaking of wives, mine's calling me right now, but she's going to have to wait.
There we go. That a boy.
Last caller Dale brought up a good point. It's really not that hard to pick up the remote and push the input button. It's also not very hard to look at the weather app on your phone and realize that this weekend is not the weekend to go move a bunch of furniture around because it is going to be miserably cold and raining. It's really not hard, but you got to love them, right?
Let me guess. She's already rented the truck, hasn't she?
Well, she told me today to call U-Haul. I'm like, have you not seen the weather, woman? It is going to be pouring down rain. You're going to be complaining that it's cold outside, and I'm going to be the one doing all the lifting anyway. So, no, I'm not doing it when it's 45 degrees and raining outside.
And
we got football
it's football season.
That's right.
Exactly. It's championship weekend, and she wants me to go move a couch, bring it down from her mom's in Columbia all the way back down to Somerville. I ain't doing it. We can do it on a weekend that there's not football being played. Now, y'all may not remember this, but I brought the idea up back in the summer about these conference championships. It is the stupidest thing in the world that we have Ohio State and Indiana playing for a conference championship when you've got legitimate bubble teams from the Big Ten sitting right there that could play for a bid into the playoffs. It's just like the SEC, just like the ACC. I know conference standings mean something, but at the same time, if you're Miami, who has a legitimate chance at playing for a playoff berth, why are we looking at a 7-5 Duke team? It just doesn't make sense. Either get rid of conference championships or restructure them to where it'll benefit the conferences and getting more teams in. The group of 5, group of 6, whatever you want to call them, I'm sorry, but we got to do something about this, because if you're going to keep a G5 or G6 in the playoff, you look at a team like JMU. In my opinion, they're the best group of 5 team in the country, and they have no way of getting into the playoff now because of the ranking last week on Tuesday. If you have, Tulane or North Texas, however the metrics figure that out, put them up against JMU, the winner goes into the playoff. It's not hard, people. And, we got a bunch of idiots sitting in a room that have no idea what they're talking about, and ESPN making this a joke of a reality TV show. And, it would just make more sense if we had, people that understand the game, understand how this works. And, if you put them in a room, it is 2025. We do have technology. Why don't we have a live stream of the conversations being had?
I like it.
It's really not hard, because then we would get our answer. If it's about, Notre Dame brings in more viewerships than Miami, whatever the case may be, at least we would have video proof of somebody finally being honest with the people who love college football. I would much rather hear somebody be honest than just have no true answer as to why Team A got in over Team B.
I'm with it.
We had a caller, we had a texter yesterday. Tom said you can't leave Texas out because they bring too many eyeballs. That can't be the metric for how we decide this thing. But if it is, tell us.
Exactly. And we know it is. I mean, we know it is.
Yeah.
Because if, Texas Tech loses this weekend, sorry, Miami, but Notre Dame's going to get in. Sorry. It's ridiculous. We need more, common sense being used. Put a camera, put a live feed, charge people $30 to watch it, and you'll make a lot of money off of it.
Thanks, Tom.
Great call, Tom. Texter at 844-FAN-PHONE says, who's he kidding? Us married guys know that Tom will indeed be moving that couch this weekend.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, send us a live. Talking about live video of the committee. How about a live video of Tom?
Yeah, let us know how many black eyes you have on Monday morning when you've told your wife, no, I'm not moving that couch on game day.
I like it.
Let's go to the phone lines once again and bring in Dan. Dan, do you think Tom's going to be moving that couch this weekend?
Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely will be.
Yeah,
What's
I
up?
think so too.
Just to kind of like reiterate what Tom was saying about it being a reality show in college football. It goes with what you said the other day, because I had the same thought at that exact same moment when you said it's a soap opera. I mean, all of it. It's just one big crazy mess.
You know what? I've never felt that way until I kind of gave it the benefit of the doubt last year, Diesel, Dan. But this year, I'm with y'all. I think it is. I think that's all it's become.
And I don't see, other than the score act potentially, shaving some of the rough edges off. I don't think it fixes everything by any stretch, but we'll see where that goes. But I have another point. The upset pick challenge. So the 3 previous weeks, we were averaging exactly 23 people who didn't pick. And then last week we had a spike of 43. So, and this week is looking to potentially even be worse. So that's just calling them all out. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't mind all the -2s. It helps me climb the leaderboard.
True.
Yeah.
Well, helps everybody else.
I'm with you. Call them out, Dan. Call them out. We're the upset picks out. Let's go. 844-326-3663. Let's go.
Thanks a lot, Bing Bong.
You guys.
I like it. Bing Bong.
No, to Tom's point there about JMU, there should be the possibility, even though that there's not. We all know it's not gonna happen. But JMU should, in the committee's mind, at least be able to jump the winner of the American Conference Championship. If James Madison is just far and away the most impressive G5 team on the field this weekend, they should be able to jump. They're not going to. They're not going to jump from, it'd be like 25 to 19 is where they'd have to go to be able to get that G5 spot. They're not going to be able to jump. But I mean, come on. If you're the committee, who cares if it's North Texas, if it's Tulane, if it's James Madison? It's all the same. So put them in a blender and see what happens.
I'm with you. I said a minute ago, I gave this whole thing the benefit of the doubt last year, but I am 110% convinced that what you said yesterday, it's become just drama. It's become,
and fans are losing confidence in this thing rapidly. It's only been 2 years of this 12-team playoff,
what's your name?
And everybody is looking at it like it's a big giant farce. Now it's also the internet age where everybody complains about everything.
That's true.
And if it doesn't benefit you, you're going to say it's rigged, it's awful, it's a show, I don't like it, we got to change the system.
I do think there's something to be said, and I know this isn't the NFL. I get that. But Diesel, I think there's something to be said for the College Football Playoff Committee, the NCAA, to say, guys, every year the NFL does this, playoffs. And we're not talking about, this team should be in, this team should. It's about football.
And every year the FCS has a very clean playoff.
Yeah.
Now they upped it to 24 for some reason. So they added a play-in element, which is a little bit ridiculous, but they rank the top 16 teams and let them play.
I don't know, man. Creed and Cowpens wants to get in. What's up, man?
Hey, I haven't kept up with this. I have, but not to this in depth. Am I correct in saying that if Virginia wins, they will get in, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if they lose, then most likely Miami will get in so they can get an ACC team in.
No, that's not true, Creed.
No,
it
I
is.
said they will do that. They don't have to. I'm saying the committee will probably do that. They will probably do that to get an ACC team in.
But then you're taking Miami and you're leaping them over who?
I don't know who they'll leap
Notre
over.
Dame?
I'm saying they'll do that as a gesture, I guess you'd say, over Notre Dame or whoever they have to. I'm just curious, is that a real possibility?
Is it a possibility? I guess, I mean, I'm looking at the rankings right now. I guess, yes, it's a possibility.
And see, Miami also really needs BYU to lose. They need to be the biggest Texas Tech fans in the world because BYU is sandwiched
11.
in between Notre Dame and Miami right now. And if you put Miami and Notre Dame side by side on the rankings, Miami's got the head-to-head.
Yeah.
How do you not rank Miami over Notre Dame at that point?
Well, BYU guys, Creed, Diesel, you said they play Texas Tech. They're going to lose that game. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they're probably going to lose.
So
probably.
The question, to answer your question, Creed, we have to first ask the question, how does the committee punish BYU? What does the committee do with BYU? Do they fall to 12, 13, 14, 15? What happens with BYU, Diesel? I don't see them.
Yeah.
I don't see them dropping a ton.
And can you punish them? Because there's this idea that you can't punish the team that loses the conference championship game.
And again, we talked about that earlier. You're setting this standard a year ago. I don't know, Creed. I think it's wacky. It's not a good spot for the committee to be in. And there's going to be some tough decisions made on Saturday night, early Sunday morning.
Okay. Well, one thing they have over the NFL is they got everybody talking about it. You know,
sure.
I guess you can say that, I guess.
Yeah, but look at the NFL. They just hit the highest ratings they've ever had twice on
they
Thanksgiving Day.
No,
so, I mean, the ratings do the talking, right?
Yeah, that's true. And don't get me wrong. That's true. All right. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, Creed. Good call, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of alluded.
It is.
It's kind of alluded. I don't love it. Want to continue the conversation that Creed just brought up about punishment for teams that lose the conference championship. And we'll see how long this John Gruden audio is. I had a TOLO send me that last night, Diesel. So we'll see if we can get that on air and live reaction to that next. cut down the music, turn off the mics, and listen to what John Gruden had to say. And Diesel, we've vetted the audio, believe it or not.
Part of it, at least. Not all of it.
John Gruden didn't drop a F-bomb. We don't believe
He
yet.
didn't send any untoward emails during the filming of this clip either.
So let's listen and react.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, Tolos, we do have audio coming up at 6 o'clock of the Ole Miss AD. He spoke, and it is juicy, let me tell you. So let's listen. We'll pause and react, and here we go. It's John Gruden.
Sleep. We've been all up in the arms.
A little echoey.
College playoff format.
Oh, I sound like an alien. I like that.
Why do we have this? Why do we have it? Hang on. We're going to try and figure out why we have this echo.
I like
audios.
being an alien.
I think I know what it is.
Oh, do you think so?
I think we got it.
Hey, Jake, who is on the committee that selects these teams? I want to know who's making the picks. These are some of the concerns I have after further review. We're picking 12 teams. I just want to know this. Why in the hell are we having these conference games? I mean, to determine who the Big Ten champion is, to determine who the SEC champion is. When I was in the NFC South, we played everybody in our division twice a year. So it was pretty easy to see who was the best in our division. When I was in the AFC West, same thing. We played everybody twice. But in some of these conferences, these teams don't even play each other. I mean, hell, I'm looking at Indiana. They didn't play Michigan, Ohio State, or USC. Then I look at Ohio State. They didn't have to go play Oregon or USC. How the hell do you determine who a conference champion is when these conferences are way too big?
Yeah, that's fix number one. Shrink
I like
the conferences.
And you and I said it. I know that this is like going to have to ruffle a lot of feathers, but his take on the conference championship games,
yeah,
I just believe, Diesel, that if we're going to figure out a way to rid ourselves of all of these problems, I think I'm come to the conclusion I'm with him. We've got to get rid of them.
I love conference championship games. I think they're a lot of fun and they are must-watch TV. But given that we have changed the system to aim at a playoff now, the conference championship game doesn't help anybody. And you got to shrink these conferences down. If you're going to go to a 9-game schedule, and if that's what you want to do, fine. 9-game conference schedule, fine. No more than 10 teams in a conference. Now, how do you legally pull off breaking these conferences apart that are already bigger than 10 teams? I don't know how you do that, but we're living in fantasy land where we get to do whatever we want.
I'm with them. Let's see.
John, what's up?
Some of these conferences got about 20 teams in a conference. It's impossible. Here's my problem. I just point this out to you. Here's Indiana playing Ohio State for the Big Ten championship. Meanwhile, Oregon is sitting at home getting a bye week before the tournament starts. What logic is that? Then you got Alabama playing Georgia for the SEC championship, and you got a team like Ole Miss and Texas A&M. They're fresh as a daisy, man. They don't even have to play a game, but they get into the tournament. What kind of logic is this? That's like the top 2 seeds in the NFC. Let's say the Chicago Bears and the LA Rams having to play to see who the number 1 seed of the NFC is before we go to the playoffs.
He's so right.
We got everybody else that's in the playoffs sitting at home having a bye week. Does that make sense? Hell no, it doesn't make sense. I'm saying this. If you're going to have these conference games, I'm all for that. We can have the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State, go play Indiana. Alabama, you go play Georgia. Texas Tech, go play BYU. And Virginia, you go play Duke. But the rest of you guys aren't getting off the hook. Some of you guys.
Pause it for a second. Tell me if this is stupid. It just popped in my head just now. Okay, let's keep conference championship games. But let's release the final rankings before the conference championship games. If it's only about money, release the final rankings on Friday or Thursday night. That following weekend, play the conference championship games. They essentially mean nothing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you want to win, you get a trophy.
How many players would opt out of conference championship
That's what I'm saying.
games
That's where I was going.
if it's not leading you towards better seeding in a playoff?
And then you go into the playoff. So you do the final rankings on Thursday night. You play the conference championship weekend. Nothing changes. We all know these are the final rankings. I don't know. I don't like these conference championships being where they are. This whole calendar screwed up.
And then we don't even have to have the question of can you be punished by losing in your conference championship game? The answer would be no. You can't be punished by losing in your conference championship game because the rankings are already set.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
And then what happens if your quarterback blows out his knee in the conference championship game? John's not wrong here. I mean, this is a guy that's coming from the NFL. He's not wrong when he says the college model doesn't make any sense. Nothing aligns. Nothing points in the same direction. Everything's pulling in different directions.
It is.
Let's get more from John Gruden.
Got to keep proving your resume's worthy by playing another game as well. Here's my solution. Just see what you think. Ohio State and Indiana are going to play, and win, lose, or draw, both teams get a bid. They've had great seasons. Georgia and Alabama are going to play to see who wins this SEC, but both teams are getting in no matter who wins or loses. And Texas Tech and BYU, they're playing to determine the Big 12 championship. Whoever wins is in, whoever loses is in. But they're playing for a distinct title of the Big 12. And then Virginia plays Duke. If Virginia wins that game, they're in. If Virginia loses that game, I'm going to punch Malisack and they're out. And I'm going to get to the Virginia scenario in just a second. But there are 6 teams that are automatically in. Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Alabama, Texas Tech, and BYU. But they get an opportunity to go play for their division championship. Now, the rest of you guys, just listen carefully.
So how do you apply an automatic you're in both of these teams to those conferences, but not to the ACC? So how do you have a double standard?
Yeah.
Is it because they're ranked? Is the only reason because Duke doesn't have a number next to their name?
It's just crazy to me, Diesel. Like, I know a lot of the Tolos out there are in the same boat as you and I are. I have grown up watching this sport from the time I could watch it. And to think that all these years later, it is as messed up as it is. I mean, this is just, you couldn't list, if you had an easel with a big old chart, you couldn't list all the issues out. Where have we gotten to, man? It's like all about money.
It's like a 5-year-old. Have you ever listened to a 5-year-old try to tell you a story where they're all over the place?
Like
it's just the stream of consciousness that just goes this direction, that direction. That's kind of how they decided to put together the college football playoff. Wouldn't it be cool if ... And then somebody just said yes to all of it. Just do all of it.
Do it all.
Well, but sir, those the number 1 and number 12, they don't line up as far as like what our ideas. Idea 1 and idea 12 don't. It doesn't matter. Do them both anyway. Just do it.
Do it. Screw it. Do it.
Speaking of doing it, do it.
Oh boy. What's up, Dewey?
Do you have a coherent thought today?
Oh, I got several.
Oh,
that's not nice. I'm not 5 years old.
I didn't say you were 5.
Or told it.
What the? All right, go ahead.
Secondly, the comment on this conference thing, I think we need to do away with conference championships, period. Mm-hmm. And it's because we already done away with the divisions. So what's the point of it? The first 2 teams, and that don't make no sense because you got 5 or 6 teams that are 10-2, and then also you got all these crazy tiebreakers, and then all this. It's just nonsense. If you finish number 1, you're in a conference championship. Move on. No more of these conference championships. It's a waste of time. No one cares. And other than rich people getting richer, it's a travesty about how college football has become.
Well, to Dewey's point, Diesel, about no one cares. The only reason we care this weekend, think about it. The only reason we care about these games this weekend is just to see what implications they have on the playoff.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, they have no implications because everyone who's in the conference, except for Duke don't even deserve to be. That's exactly the point. Well, you got 7-5 Duke playing in an ACC championship game for when you got 10-2 Miami several rows back. And I'm defending Miami just because.
Wow.
And
did you say Madcraft was right?
No, he's not right. But the point is, how you explain to a 10-2 team they can't play for a championship? It's garbage.
Nobody's brought this idea up. Why doesn't the ACC just pay Duke like $10 million and say, stay home, we're putting Miami in instead? I mean, that's the matchup everybody wants, and Duke's going to get mad about it. They're going to sue and say, you didn't give us our chance. Yeah. Like, if you can't make it in, pay them $10 million to stay home.
They're going to win this game anyways, and then everyone's be crying like little babies because they didn't make the playoffs. So they made these stupid rules up that don't make no sense, and then they break their rules, and they want to make new rules to break new rules and break old rules, and it's just a bunch of rule breakers, and it just doesn't make no sense. College football has become a joke.
And you don't like rule breakers, do you, Dewey?
I'm a rule breaker.
So you don't like yourself?
Well, sometimes.
Oh.
Thanks, Dewey.
Thanks, Dewey. Wow. Yeah.
That was incredible.
These conferences got to shrink. That's the only way. And hey, you know the only way to get there, Cole? Government intervention.
Maybe.
Characterize it as a monopoly. Call the Big Ten a monopoly. They broke up the Bell South, Ma Bell. They broke that company apart. Why can't they break the Big Ten apart? Why can't they break the SEC apart?
It's unbelievable. Joey wants to weigh in, Diesel, at 844-326-3663. What do you think, Joey?
What's going on, guys?
You, man.
So I got two ideas. The first one isn't shrinking the conferences. It's expanding them even more.
Yeah. Okay.
They need to go to 20 teams. Cap 20 teams, 2 divisions per conference. All 10 teams in each division play each other.
Isn't that just 4 conferences?
Nope, 2 conferences. Each conference, 2 divisions.
But if they don't play each other, isn't that just 2 conferences under the same banner?
Pretty much.
Okay.
But the winner of the divisions play for the conference championship.
Okay.
Determine your playoff seeding based on runner-up in conference. Or shrink the division or the conferences down to a maximum of 12. Go all 12 regular season games against conference opponents, maybe 1 outside, and no conference championships. The winner is the winner. Top 2 go to the playoffs.
I mean, hey, putting some sort of order in how we put together schedules is not a bad thing. And it doesn't make any sense when one conference has 18 and one conference has 16 and the other one has 12.
Yeah.
We put ourselves into a position where not everybody has to play everybody. So you get into these hypothetical, what does my eye test tell me when they don't actually play on the field?
Right.
Thanks for the call, Joey.
We want the best teams in the playoffs anyway, and the conference champions, if it was a big conference, they would be the best teams in the country. So
I'm with you.
Well, the playoffs would work that way.
Thanks,
with you,
Joey. Appreciate you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm surprised we haven't heard somebody say, "Well, just expand the season so that we can make all these things happen with the conferences that we already have." Well, if you expand the season, now you got to expand NIL. Now you got to expand rev share. Now you got to pay these guys more money, and it just exacerbates the problem that we already have.
It's a messy place to be in. Look, you're not seeing the right correlation right now, Diesel, of people not watching college football, but I just don't like the way it's going. I just don't. There's got to be something.
Yeah.
There's got to be something done.
That audio that I mentioned to Pete earlier, where Scott Frost, who's now at UCF, he came out and just very publicly said, this system is broken.
Yeah.
And I might be one of the few coaches right now who's willing to step out and say that the system is broken. But if other coaches were asked and they were answering honestly, they would say the same thing, that the system is broken. I don't know, Cole, maybe all these coaches should sign a petition, or they should get together and say, hey, this is broken. We demand that the system be fixed. Would coaches even have that kind of power anymore?
Who does have the power? That's the question.
The players have the power.
Yeah.
The players have the power because we can't infringe upon their rights to get Mercedes and get and sign, 6-figure deals. When we come back, Cole, I'm going to make a push for you Tolos to get us your upset picks. Going to go through the games that you have a chance to choose from. We'll re-give our upset picks. That's next. Eric in Boiling Springs gets his upset pick in. He's going Indiana +4 over Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Tolos, you got 10 games to choose from this week. You could take Troy for 23.5 to upset James Madison, or you could take the myriad of 2.5-point games. North Texas Tulane's a 2.5-point spread. Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, 2.5 points. It's up to you.
No,
what you
take the big
do.
one. Take the big one.
Take the big one. Take the swing. I mean, it's a risk reward, 23.5 points or -1.
By the way, you
Which one would you rather
had,
go?
3-4 of these games are tomorrow?
Yeah. So, a lot of football on tomorrow. That Troy JMU game and the Kennesaw State Jacksonville State game.
I'll tell you what, I'm
kick off
looking
at
forward
7.
to those. Those two, those are big.
Yeah,
those are big.
Is Billy Napier going to be on the sideline for JMU against Troy? I'm sure he'll be in the building somewhere. He'll be walking around, getting used to where he is. Cole, everybody's got ideas for how to fix the college football playoff, for how to fix the season, and this might be one of the worst ones that I've heard. Here is USC head coach Lincoln Riley weighing in on how they should fix the college football calendar.
I mean, there's only good, in my opinion, one way to fix all of this. And you got to have the national championship game somewhere around Christmas to New Year's.
Yes.
Like that's the only way it's going to work, because you got three things that are competing right now. You have high schools finishing their year, signing day, the high school calendar. You have college academic calendars and people getting in and out, and you have semesters and quarter systems, and you got all different calendars there. And then you have a college football season, and then you have the differing roster decisions that are having to happen. And the hard thing is, this isn't professional. Professional league, all right, you end the season, you make all the rules where you do all the stuff after. It's easy because you don't have anything else competing.
Yep.
Here you're trying to balance things. To me, that's the only way that it's ever going to get fixed.
Do you want to push all this stuff up, Cole? I mean, does that mean shortening the season, or does that mean starting the season in July?
Here's what it means. It means the playoff has ruined the sport calendar.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. In the year 2006, Texas and Southern Cal played for a national championship on January the 4th.
It's a good time to be alive.
So, to his point, I understand what he's saying. It's not feasible, but BCS, guess what?
Yeah.
We were playing the national championship game on just a few days after New Year. So it's the calendar. And I know, going back to the whole Lane Kiffin thing, everybody wants to blame Lane. This sport. Yeah. I heard a piece of audio last night about it. This sport has the most bleeped up calendar, and there's no other sport. Name a sport, Diesel, that has a calendar that's as messed up as this one.
Well, it just makes too much sense to align the high school football, college football, and NFL calendars in a way that has them all kind of doing things about the same time. You're wrapping up around. It doesn't have to be dead on. I mean, I like the fact that they start the high school season a week before college, and they start the college season a week before the NFL. I like that, but have them end things around the same time, and so that important dates for when you flip into a new year all happen at the same time, so we can just have some uniformity top to bottom with this sport.
And you know what? He said it there a minute ago, or one of the guys did, about the NCAA, it's not just football. You have all these other things. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, when you talk about these players becoming paid, whether you want to use the word contractual or employees or whatever it is, there are so many other things that are in the way. And I'm not saying football is the only thing that matters, but Diesel, it to his point, you've got other sports there. It's not just football here. It's not like the NFL can do, where the only thing they're focused on is their league. It's difficult. I acknowledge that. But at the same time, man, oh, wait, I was going to say let's have whoever's in charge of all this fix it. But maybe that's the issue. There is nobody in charge of it. There is no governing body to fix it.
The people who are in charge and pulling the strings on this thing don't have the best interest of the sport at heart. They have, how can we make the most money at heart? And how we make the most money will always be play more games, put them on television, expand the playoff. That's going to be their decision every single time.
Oh, yeah.
They will never vote to turn this thing back to an 11-game season. They will never vote to get rid of conference championship games because they make too much money.
Yeah. And you know what? The more expansion you have, when you talk about money pushing everything, yes, that's 100% true. The more that happens, the less you're going to have organization and structure. There's just simply no way.
Well, the idea that you can fix a problem by adding more of the problem is ludicrous.
Tall Tigers fan 24 gets in his or her upset pick. Not sure which one, but Indiana. Sorry, I was drawing a blank there. I was like, it was IND. Indianapolis to call us their thing. +4. Indiana +4 versus Ohio State. That's funny that I said that because I was wondering the other day, real quick, what would the upset picks challenge look like? How bad or good would we be if we did it for the NFL instead of college? You think it'd be tougher or
I think
easier?
the winner would have like 15 points.
Not as many?
At the end, because it just spreads aren't as big in the NFL. Now, they've gotten
not
bigger over the past few years.
Not near as big, though. Yeah. And I do think more upsets happen in the NFL. I do. I think because they're so small, the spreads are.
Well, and most people wouldn't have the ability to just take some wild 23.5 point game.
That's true. We wouldn't have the leaders we have right now. No offense to the leaders. Diesel, we've got to get into this Ole Miss Athletic Director audio. Oh, my gosh, this is juicy. This is good, and we'll have it for you next. need them right now. 844-326-3663. Do not wait until it's too late. Do not give us I hadn't done good. I'm going to quit, because I am a testament that even though you might be sucking it up, you can still rally. I've rallied all the way into the third column. No. I'm sorry. Do you call that the third column or the second column? I was counting from the right. I'm at the 1, 2.
Go from the left.
You go from the left.
Yeah.
The second column.
So what you're saying is you like to suck and rally?
From the right. From the right. Whatever that means. I'm not letting you put words in my mouth, but whatever.
The only thing.
I don't know. I don't know how we got down that road. But I'm in the second column is where I am. And what a place to be, Tolos. You may think, yeah. You know what? I hadn't done well, but make sure you get your upset pick in. Upset picks. What was yours?
I took the BYU game. BYU plus 12.5 over Texas Tech.
You were the one feeling a little ballsy there.
I didn't take Troy over JMU because I really don't think that one's going to happen. I don't think there's any way that one's going to happen. But come on, BYU's 11-1. How would you not give them a chance?
Yeah, no. I mean, they're a good team, but I like Texas Tech a lot. I think that offense is something special.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's an upset.
It is.
You know, I'm not taking a favorite here.
I know. I just I'm being more conservative than you are this weekend. Diesel, the Ole Miss AD.
Wait, if I hit, would I pass you? How many points do you have? I'm going to pull up the
I don't have
standings here. Give me just a moment. I'll have it. Cole, you have 19.5 points. I have 13.5 points.
Oh, yeah, you passed me.
Who did you take?
I took a 4.5er with.
Okay.
Oh, I took
So you'd have 24 points if you hit.
Who did I take? There's only 9 games.
Good gosh. You took UNLV.
How can I forget?
Plus 4.5 over Boise State. So you hit for 4.5, Cole. You will be at 25 points.
We'd be close, wouldn't we?
You'd be at 25
Do
points.
the math. Come on. Get your calculator
24
out.
points.
Take your shoes off.
24 points. If I hit, because I'm currently sitting at 13.5, I'd have 26 points. So if we both hit, I pass you.
You'd pass me 1 point. No, 2 points. You'd pass me by 2 points.
Take your shoes off. Use your toes.
They're off. They already beat you to it. All right, we've got to get into what who the heck is Keith Carter? For the Tolos listening, driving home, driving to eat, driving around Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, wherever you are. Keith Carter is the Ole Miss AD. Did you know that? Well, you do now. Diesel, I don't know how this reporter got him to sit down and do this interview, but he did. And did he talk? Yeah, he talked. Did he spill the beans? Yeah, he spilled the beans. This is good.
It sounds like he was waiting to get this off his chest.
I think so. And I wish I would have reached out to him first and said, look, hey, Keith, Diesel and I know we're not in Mississippi, but we're not too far. We need you on wire to wire. I should have been quicker on the trigger there. So here we go. Let's listen and react to what Keith Carter said about the I don't even know what to call it. The situation of what happened with Lane Kiffin.
Keith Carter is my guest, athletics director at Ole Miss, and he has been a fairly.
By the way, Richard Cross is the one interviewing Mr. Carter.
Busy fellow for the last few weeks. Unprecedented is one of those words that gets thrown around a lot, defined as never done or known before. It's probably an overused word, but in the last few weeks at Ole Miss, it may be the right word to describe what this coaching change over time has looked like at Ole Miss. Keith, I appreciate some of your time. I know a lot of people really anxious to hear from you this morning. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, glad to be here, Richard.
Is unprecedented the right word when you look at a coach choosing to leave a team that is likely a playoff team to go through a very public changeover and then have all of the stuff that goes along with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. I don't think we've seen it before. And, our team, obviously ranked 6th now, has a chance to just as good a chance as anybody to go win a national championship. And so For me, it's
So Ted,
Oh my gosh. Thanks, video. Let me skip this ad. Sorry about that.
if the thought is you have to go somewhere else to win a national championship, well, man, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, we have a chance to do one right here. So I think unprecedented is a good way to put it. There was a lot of things that happened behind the scenes that were unprecedented as well. But, we're focused on Ole Miss now. And obviously, the thing that really was the frustrating part to me more than anything was the fact that, the focus was taken off of these players and off of our student athletes. And we have some of the best stories in college football this year right on our team, obviously 11-1. And man, it's just awesome now to put the focus back on the guys and focus on this playoff run.
That's a similar message to what Chancellor Glenn Boyce gave last week, was a focus on the team and the assistant coaches that had worked so hard to kind of keep the team focused and together. We may jump around a little bit. There's a lot of ground to cover. Last night, the college football playoff rankings came out, the penultimate rankings. The final ones will come out on Sunday. There are a lot of people that say the next to last set of rankings are the most important because you don't see a ton of movement after championship weekend. What was your level of deep breath, exhale, maybe legitimately smile for the first time in a couple of weeks when you saw Ole Miss pop up at number 6 last night?
Well, it was fantastic. And again, so much credit to our guys, to the players first and foremost, and then obviously Pete and the staff. But yeah, it was awesome. We were doing a ton of work behind the scenes, working with committee members, just making sure that they had all the information.
Whoa, huh? What did he say? Did you hear that?
We were working behind the scenes
with committee members. Is that where we are?
Should they be allowed? To be able to have a voice?
Talk about. Just this. What? You talk about messy. How many Diesel? If this is the case, if Keith Carter, the AD at Ole Miss, is openly admitting that they're talking to the committee, those 12 committee members, how many coaches are they hearing from?
Do you want a juror in a murder trial to be fielding phone calls from the public? Hey, I think he did it. I don't think he did it. I think the evidence over here suggests blah, blah. Like that's
even though it'd be fun, that's what it's like.
You should sequester the committee members. They shouldn't be able to take phone calls from the coaches and the ADs and the conference presidents and chancellors.
They are. I'm going to back that up.
Doing?
I want to hear that again.
But yeah, it was awesome. We were doing a ton of work behind the scenes, working with committee members, just making sure that they had all the information on who was going to coach our team, who was going to be, in the building, preparing our team, those type of things. Obviously the league office, knew that information. They were helping as well. And so we felt pretty good about the feedback we were getting. So
what it sounds like is the committee Diesel told them, Ole Miss, if your offensive coordinator leaves, we might dock you.
Yeah.
We might dock you. They said, ho. Get on the radio, please. Please turn the plane around. Plane, turn it around.
We need Charlie Weiss Jr. back
Charlie.
in Oxford Stat.
Get back, Charlie. Get back.
I guarantee you there's going to be a giant financial incentive for Charlie Weiss Jr. if he wins a playoff game, if he gets to the championship game, or if he wins the whole thing. Are you telling me there's not going to be a new structure in place that wasn't there prior to him going with
Turn that plane around, Charlie. We need you back, and we need you back like now. More from AD Keith Carter.
We were not going to necessarily be penalized for Coach Kiffin leaving as long as we had, a great plan in place. And obviously the team's still there, all intact. And couldn't be more excited about Coach Golding and him leading the way. So, I know some of our fans and people were a little anxious out there yesterday, as were we. But
serious question. This is 100% serious. Did Ole Miss hire Pete Golding because he was the right coach? Or did Ole Miss hire Pete Golding because they wanted to look as if nothing was changing? They had a staff, stability, nothing to look at here. Keep looking. Go to the next door. That's a fair point. Do they really believe in Pete Golding, or do they really want to get in the college football playoff?
They hired him fast, didn't they?
Diesel, fast. They had him hired by the time Lane was on the tarmac.
Yeah.
Okay, no, seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All of this was for optics.
I'm just saying, it just makes it just makes you wonder, man. It just makes you wonder.
It also makes you wonder, in what ways could this come back to bite them in the ass?
That's right.
By not doing their due diligence, by not taking the time. Maybe it's also putting Golding in place as a way to stabilize the roster and keep some of these guys from transferring at the end of the year.
Hey, Pete, we love you, but we just hired you because we wanted to make the CFP. We wanted to have stability. We didn't want them looking under this rug. No, not us.
We knew we were talking to the right people, and we were getting the feedback that we thought was good.
There was some criticism, and maybe less criticism and more frustration among Ole Miss fans about feeling like they didn't know anything between Sunday when you announced that Pete Golding was going to be the next head coach and an expected press conference today that has since been canceled because Pete announced last night he wanted to focus on recruiting and also getting ready for the playoff and said he would talk Sunday after the final rankings came out.
So, look, the reality of it is this Ole Miss AD, as I skip through this ad, this Ole Miss AD, I think should be commended for speaking out. But I do think ultimately when you have a guy like this who's willing to speak out as soon as this happens, Diesel, it's only going to make it a lot more messy real quick. Here's more of what he said.
And I think, sometimes there's things that have to be done kind of behind the curtain that, unfortunately we just can't put out there, and we can't give an update every hour, at the top of the hour and those type of things. And so we were working, mainly on solidifying our staff, and who was going to be here to coach the team and those type of things. We feel like we had a good plan, but at the end of the day, we're working with, a couple of coaches, at least one coach that, had got on a plane to Baton Rouge. And so we're working on getting him back, which we announced yesterday with Coach Weiss. And so, I understand when there's a void of information, it gets filled with all kinds of things and rumors and angst and all of that. But, we were working, slow and steady behind the scenes. And, that's where you just have to ask your fan base and your donors just to, trust the process and know that, we're going to get the information out when we can. And I think we have a pretty good track record of getting things right. And so, I feel like yesterday afternoon when we were able to make that announcement that this is our staff, our goal was obviously to get that out before the rankings. Last night, even though we were doing the work behind the scenes with phone calls and those type of things. But, hopefully yesterday was a big day for us. Obviously we got that out. You get the ranking you want. You introduce Coach Golding at the basketball game, and, everybody loves that. We bring the team out. We have a couple of winners, down in Jackson last night at the Connerly Trophy with Trinidad and Patrick Kudas. So I think yesterday was a pretty strong media day for us. But at the same time, we do apologize sometimes, when you can't get anything, out exactly at the timing, that people might want it.
Your reaction?
Sounds to me like they were negotiating with the college football playoff committee. They said, hey, we lost the entire offensive staff.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, we know we're going to have to dock you for that. Oh, but what if we immediately elevate a DC? Well, yeah, we're still gonna have to dock you a little bit for that, though. That's not good enough to keep you where you are. Well, how about I raise you an offensive coordinator? What if I could get our offensive coordinator back? Well, okay, maybe we'll think about bumping you up a little bit now.
If this is true, Diesel, there's 12 people on this committee. Here's what I don't understand. Is there one person that speaks for all the other 11?
Hunter Yurchek. He goes on TV.
So he's the one
that chair.
He's the one that I'm assuming that everybody's communicating with, right? That he's the one that Keith Carter and last year Shane Beamer and this year Steve Sarkisian, they're all communicating with him. I guess I would imagine, because it would be convoluted, or more convoluted rather, if it was like, well, hey, I just texted Mickey. Mickey's on the college football playoff committee, but Barbara didn't like what I told Mickey. But you know what? Dan and Lou both agreed that I told Mickey that Barbara, it's just like I'm making fun of it. I'm joking, but that's the reality. We just don't know. Going back to what Tom said, We just need some honesty. We need to know as fans what's really happening here.
God, I've never longed for the BCS era so much.
I know, right?
You know, it was
Never
cut,
did you think?
It was dry. The analytics told you exactly who were the best teams.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that year that Southern Cal and Texas played in that epic Rose Bowl, there's a lot of people in Auburn, Alabama that were upset that they didn't get to go play in the national championship game. But we still got an epic football game. Now we got this convoluted system that has back channel dealings and negotiations. It's gotten so ugly so fast, Cole. And to be honest, again, I've said this before. I think it's a great thing that it's gotten so ugly so fast and that it's going to keep getting uglier. You think that this year is going to be the ultimate level of insanity that we're dealing with? No, it's going to get worse. And as it gets worse, somebody somehow will put together a system that allows for guardrails and to fix this thing. And because it has to. It can't keep getting crazier than this.
It can't, right?
You wouldn't think, but then again, we never thought we'd be here.
Real quick, let's see. I have one more piece I want to get to, a short snippet of this audio with the Ole Miss AD. What happened during the Sunday players meeting? This is pretty interesting.
So, man, first of all, let me just say the leadership group of our football team is an amazing group of young men. They were fantastic and have been. I know most of those guys, and to spend some time with them on Sunday morning was great. I'll let them kind of tweet out what they want to tweet out and give information that they want to give. But I don't think the way he portrayed that meeting was accurate.
Ooh.
There was a lot of pushback to him leaving. And, it was really one of those things where, these guys knew they needed coaches to coach the game, Richard, and it was sounding like he was going to take, all the offensive staff with him if they didn't, he didn't coach in the game. And so there was a lot of discussion around that, but I think begging for him to stay is certainly an overstatement. I think that, our players are starting to show, maybe what really happened in that meeting.
Whoa. How many people on that coaching staff do you think, Cole, went with Lane Kiffin because they like him and they believe in him? And how many went just because they're like, well, he's my cash cow, I'm going with Lane?
Yeah, I mean, Lane, are we getting paid? Yeah, we're getting paid. All right, let's roll.
Imagine telling your wife, hey, honey, take the kids out of school. We're moving to Baton Rouge. Why? Because Lane's going to Baton Rouge. Yeah, but you hate Lane. He calls you an idiot to your face. You hate Lane.
It doesn't matter.
But he's going to pay me a lot of money, so I got to go.
That's right. No, you're right. It's true. It's messy, but guess what? We love the messy, don't we?
Gamecock fans, we're going to dive deep into your program, your recruiting output, and everything with Jordan Kaye of the State Newspaper. And that's coming your way next.